All right, we're live. Hello, 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 everybody. I'm going to put 3 minutes on the clock and sit back here and noodle on my guitar while I let people trickle on in. Welcome to the stream. Feel free to hang out in the chat if you are early. We are going to be covering Notion formulas from a beginner perspective, at least from the early parts of this stream. And then we're going to go into a few little intermediate parts of Notion formulas. So yeah, if you have questions, let me know in the chat. 3 minutes on the clock. I'm going to hang out back here and do my favorite thing, noodle around on the guitar. Let people come on in. Hang on out. All right, that's 3 minutes. Let's get started. Welcome to the stream. Let me get my starting soon thing off of the camera. Cool. Thanks y'all for showing up. Unfortunately, I cannot play any real songs, so I play what I think of in the moment, and then it's all gone. So yeah, we've got questions in the chat. I think Marissa is going to be modding the chat as well, so she'll be able to let me know what the bigger questions are. But welcome to the stream. We are doing Notion formulas for beginners today. So if you have watched my recent Notion Formulas 2.0 masterclass and you were like, that's way too confusing for me. If you've gone through my Notion formula, reference guide on the website, you thought the same thing. This is the stream for you. We are going to start from a very beginner-friendly perspective, and I'm just going to switch over so you can kind of see what I've got going on here. So, like a teacher, I actually prepped. Not sure if I prepped good enough for this, but I did at least try to do some prep. So we have formulas for beginners worksheet I'm going to be working through here. I've got 6 different formulas that I'm going to build for you on stream here. And I'm going to explain everything that I'm doing. And as you can see in the chat, we have also created a template version of this. So there is a reference page where each of these is already built. And then there is a I guess, a work page where I'm going to actually be building them from scratch. Let me also get my Cursor Pro on there. There we go. Fun little fact, I actually use macOS now for streaming specifically because Cursor Pro is the best little cursor highlighter that I've ever found. And then I think it's called Keystroke Pro is the best little keystroke highlighter that I found as well. So yeah, so we're just going to get into it. I wanted to first let you know at least about one resource we have before we get into it, and that is our Notion formula guide. I think I messed up my window sizing, so let me fix that really quickly here, just so there's nothing that I'm not showing you. Yeah, so over on thomasjfrank.com, this will go in the chat as well, on the little Learn Notion main menu item, we have this Notion formulas link. And this is basically full technical documentation for Notion formulas. So if you are trying to write a formula and you're like, hey, I don't understand how the test function works, wouldn't you know it, we have an article going over exactly how it works. It's syntax. We have examples for it. We have example databases where you can see it in action. And we've done that for every single Notion function inside of the Notion formulas language. So check that out. And beyond that, we are going to get into our first little formula here, and feel free to pop questions in the chat. And then I will ask Marissa if she could collect questions in the back channel for me, because I think the chat's going to get a little bit hard to kind of parse, since these questions can be a little confusing and a little complex, since we're talking about essentially kind of sort of a programming language. So let's go into task time estimates, and we're going to actually build ourselves a little time estimator for tasks. And I like doing things this way because it lets us basically jump in and get a result right away, and then we can start explaining the pieces and how they fit together with a little bit of context at first. So speaking of context, let me show you the reference just so you can see what we're going to build here. We're going to build this nice little time task estimates page where we can estimate how long a task is going to take in terms of hours, and then we can add a buffer. And a buffer is often called a fudge ratio. So basically, if you look into psychology, humans are extremely bad at estimating how long things are going to take. Usually we vastly underestimate things. So the fudge ratio or buffer method is you basically get like a percentage and you add that to your task estimates. So that's what we're going to do here. We have our 2-hour estimate right here. You can see we have a buffer, and I believe this is 20%. Yes, it is. So it basically adds these two together to create a better estimate of how long a task is going to take. 2.2 hours in this case, 8 hours in this case, and then we can actually sum that together. And you'll see later, we can create a nice little view where we can basically schedule tasks for our day. We can estimate them, and then we can get an estimate of how many hours all of our tasks together should take. And hopefully it's not, more than 8 hours, unless you're kind of in animal mode like me and trying to do 12-hour workdays sometimes. So the way we can build ourselves a formula property is you can add the little plus icon here on a database, and you can find yourself a formula property just by typing formula. So I'm going to call this formula estimate. And a cool little thing you might not know about Notion now is you can give properties their own icons now. So I might give this like a clock or a watch icon. And this is sort of a new feature. It used to be that property types in databases legitimately just had their own icons. Now you can give them whatever you want. So we're going to work with this in a while. I think I'm going to get rid of this tags icon. I'm going to hide it in the view just so I can show you a bit more on screen here. We're going to be working with Notion's formula editor, so I want to make sure I have a good amount of space to work with. Okay, so to create this, we need 2 number properties first. We need our actual manual estimate, and then we need our fudge ratio. So let's go ahead and create those. I'm going to make it a number property just like this, and I'm going to call that one, let's call it manual, because I already used estimate for my formula property. This is going to be type of number, and this is just going to be an hour estimate. So I'm going to use a bar graph here to represent this. And if you're unfamiliar with the way that these little graphs work in Notion number formula types or number types now, basically if you're not number formatting by a percentage, then it's going to give you this divide by here. And if I keep it at 100, watch what happens if I put, say, 10 in there. So basically it's divided by 100, whatever I put in there. And if we're doing like a time estimator, we probably want to use 8 as our, is it divisor or is it, let me know in the chat, what's the bottom part of a division equation? I think it's divisor. We probably want to use 8 for that divisor. Hopefully I'm using that term correctly. And if I do that, then I could do something more reasonable, like a 2-hour task, and you get this nice little bar graph showing 2 out of 8 hours. So there's our manual number property. And we're also going to create ourselves another number property. I'm going to actually format this one as a %, and we're going to call this one fudge. Look at that. Denominator. Thank you. Sometimes you brain fart when you're teaching on the internet to 184 people. Thank you all for showing up. And thank you all for correcting my my lack of 6th grade math terminology in the chat. Okay, so we're going to create this fudge property here. Let me see if I can get that a % icon. Looks like they didn't add % icon in there. So just to be whimsical instead, we're going to give it a butterfly instead. And I'll give it a bar as well. Why not? And you'll notice now that I am formatting as a %. We don't have that denominator property there because it's a %. So obviously 100% is that denominator. So if I were to say, put 20% as my fudge ratio, which would be to say every time I estimate that something is going to take an hour, it actually takes about 20% longer than an hour. So let's add 20% to the fudge ratio. That's what we're doing here. And now we have the 2 pieces of information we need to actually create our accurate estimate. So once I do this, I'm going to enter into what's called the Notion formula editor, and I'm going to try to get this as big as possible. And if I need to, I will move my face off the screen just like that. But for now, I don't think I'm covering up too much crucial information. In fact, what I might be able to do is move the title over there just like that. And yeah, that gets the editor more in the middle of the screen. So I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so thinking through what we need to do here, we basically need to multiply our 2-hour manual estimate in this case by our fudge ratio. But we also need to add 1, correct? Because if we were to say take 2 hours times 20%, then we would get, what is that? 0.4 hours. And that's not a good estimate. So what we need to do is actually add 1 to that. So the way we can start doing that is we can actually just reference properties directly in the formula editor, and you can see them here on the left side. So these are all the properties inside of your database. And it looks like I have quite a few that are hidden. And then below here, we have 2 different categories of tools that we can use to build our formulas. Oh, and somebody said denominator is for fractions, divisor is for division. I think I might have gotten it right then. Sweet. Okay, so we have two kinds of categories of tools here. We have built-ins. There are only 3 to look at here. They're basically just built-in Boolean values, so not true and false. And Boolean is literally just true, false, and then not would just be the inverse. And then the bulk of what we have here are functions. So if you are a developer, I saw a few developers in the chat talking about the things they were coding, you'll probably be very familiar with functions. If you're not, I'm going to go over what functions are in this stream, so don't you worry. But basically, a function is like a defined set of rules. Think of it almost like a machine, and you put stuff into the machine, and then out the other end comes another machine. If you've ever watched Rick and Morty, you've seen how they make the plumbus. This is basically just plumbus makers, but instead of plumbuses, we're making like the length of something, or we're checking if something contains a substring, or we are, it's going down a little bit, multiplying, we are dividing, we're doing all kinds of things where we take an input, often called an argument, and then we do something to that argument to get a return value. So those are basically what we're going to be working with for the majority of the stream. And then not listed here, we also have what are called operators. And if you've taken any kind of math class in the past, you know what an operator is because it's literally a symbol just like this, like a plus. So that's the addition operator. We have minus, that is the subtraction operator. We have the little star symbol, that's your multiplication operator. We also have parentheses. We have a few different operators we can work with. So if we are trying to basically multiply our manual estimate with our fudge ratio, what we could do here is first type in manual, there it is, and then we could multiply it just like that with our multiplication operator by 1 plus our percentage. But if you also remember from, I think this is 6th grade math, there is what's called order of operations, right? You've got your PEMDAS. So parentheses, exponents, put myself in the spot here. Yeah, parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, right? So if we want to add 1 to our 20% fudge ratio, so we actually get a larger time, we need to add parentheses, because watch what happens if I do it without it. I could do manual times 1, times 1 plus our fudge, and that gets us 2.2, which I think in this case is actually correct, but if we were to do different things, we would get a different result. So Let's go ahead and make sure we're adding these together first. Just like that. And actually, no, I was wrong because it's 2.4. It's not 2.2. So yeah, I was right earlier. Making sure we have our parentheses in there is actually going to give us the correct result there. So that is basically all you would do to get a really quick and dirty version of this done. And now we can see 2.4 is our actual time estimate. Look at that. And another cool thing about formulas is they return what are called data types, right? There are 7 total data types that formulas can return. In the past, there were 4. Now with Formulas 2.0, we actually have 7. So to go through those really quickly, we have what are called strings. So basically just strings of text. We have numbers, numeric values. You can actually do addition, subtraction, numeric operations on those. We have dates. And those use what's called the ISO 8601 date standard on the back end. You don't have to worry about that too much unless you're getting into programming later on. We're going to mess with it a little bit in this stream with that format, but it's just good to know. There are, let's see here, Booleans, and they're represented as checkboxes in Notion, but they are Booleans, so true and false values. And then we have the new data types, which are a bit more special. We have what are called lists. If you're familiar with programming a little bit, they're called arrays. They can just basically hold a list of sequential data of other types. We have people objects, and then we have relation objects, so page relations. And one person is asking, how do we get our formula window that big? I am using just Command plus, so I think you can see this on the screen. Just does that. Hopefully that doesn't, not too disorienting. But yeah, Command plus, Command minus, that will zoom your screen in. So I'm not really getting the formula editor to be any bigger than it normally is. I've just massively zoomed my screen in. So where I was going with this is if we're returning a number type from a formula property, then guess what? We can do the same bar graphs or even ring graphs that we can do with regular number properties. So once I have a number being outputted from this formula, I can go into the formula settings just like that. And now we're going to get that show as section with our bar and our ring. So I could do that. I could do that. And once again, we're not outputting a percentage. So we want to edit our divide by to something more realistic. Again, I'm going to assume an 8-hour workday here. So I'm going to divide by 8 as my divisor / denominator. And that's going to give me my time estimate. So I'm going to go back and zoom out a little bit here again. And again, this is a demonstration of how you can get that formula editor to be oopsie. Yep. I did it again. I did it again. You know, I probably should have put the studio mode back on. Okay. So let me recap that real quick, because I was just talking and showing myself. So if your property is outputting a number type, you can go into your property settings just like this. And now you see the show as, and like I said before, I am setting my divide by to 8. Whoops. I guess that was only 1 minute of not sharing. So I think that's better than last stream. I had like 2 minutes of not sharing. I'm getting better. Maybe we'll be to 0 minutes next time. I even gave myself like a little peripheral vision thing, and it wasn't good enough. So we'll go. We'll get better at it. I'm getting better at it. Okay, so what I want to do now is go back to my reference area, and I want to see if there was anything else I added to this formula. And actually I did. Okay, so the other thing we're going to add to this formula is the ability to basically add tasks to a daily schedule and only show the tasks that are actually scheduled for that day. So what we can do here is add a little checkbox property, which we already have. It's called schedule. And what this is going to allow us to do is check the tasks that we actually want to do in a given day. And then we can use the little calculate sections down here at the bottom of the table to show the total, if we do the sum, total number of hours that we are scheduling for the day. But right now, it's just going to show all of them. So if I were to also give this one an estimate like 3, and I gave this one a fudge, just say it's 20 again, now we're going to see 6. And we also see a rounding error here, so we'll go ahead and fix that in a bit. But first, we are going to make it so that only tasks we are scheduling are getting an estimate. So the way we can do that is adding what's called a little bit of conditional logic. And you might notice that as if-then statements. So the way we can do this, is do Shift-Enter. And this actually gets us into a multi-line editor, which is a huge new addition to Notion's formula editor, which is really, really nice. Okay, so I'm going to add an if statement right here just by typing if. Oops, I'm not inside of the editor. If, just like that. And here's a cool thing. I can just do parenthesis, parenthesis, and I can go back in Shift Enter, and now I get indentation, which is pretty darn cool. So basically, if statements have three what are called arguments. We have the first argument, which is going to be the condition we're checking against, and then we have the second and third, which are going to be, the second one is if the condition is true, we will execute that. If the condition is false, we will execute that instead. So the condition that we want to check against is this schedule checkbox checked? And because it is a Boolean, because it's a true false, we can just reference it by typing schedule. And basically it's going to say, is schedule true? This is shorthand for is schedule true. If it were false, then we could, I think, do like a not schedule. But if we just do schedule, it's just going to be, yep, is it true? And if it is, then that is when we want to do this formula we've already written here. So I'm going to go ahead and select that, copy or cut it, and then paste it right there. And then the third argument, which we can even see, we have an error message here. Function if expects 3 arguments, but only 2 are provided. So we have nice little error handling here. So I'll do a comma there. And if it is not checked, then we're just going to have a 0. So now you can see, even though I've added 3 hours to this database schema design task right here, the estimate is 0 because we haven't checked it. And if I were to check it, now we get it. So the next thing we need to do is fix this rounding error, and that is actually quite easy. We're going to add .round here, just like that. And you can see that it actually adds 4. If we wanted to be a little bit more accurate with our estimates here, we didn't want to just go to the nearest integer. We could do something a little fancier, and that would be basically multiplying it by 100 and then dividing it by 100. So I'll give you a reference for this because it might be a little bit hard to explain on stream, but if we go to the round article, which let me see if I can find it. I think it's in our math functions here. We have, well, number one, we have different rounding functions, and I made this really cool graphic for showing how they work. But we also have rounding to a specific decimal place. So let's just actually go into this and we can see what's happening here. So round is always going to round to the nearest integer. And that means if I have 3.5 or 3.57, round is going to round us up to 4. If we want to go, if we say like have 3.78 and we want to round to 3.8, then we have to do a little trick here. Basically here it's round the number times 100 inside of our round call, and then we divide by the exact same number we multiplied by inside here. So if we want to go to 2 decimal places, we'll use 100. If we want to go to 3 decimal places, we will use 1,000, and that's basically the trick. And a lot of programming languages actually do this. I've noticed, I don't even think JavaScript's round method has like a thing for specifying the decimal place. So you kind of have to do this math. I remember when I first got into Notion formulas, I was like, why didn't they build this in as an option? Well, turns out a lot of programming languages don't build things as options. You just have to use logic and math to figure things out. So what we can do is multiply this by, I think, 100. So we'll do 100 just like that. And I'm going to wrap the whole thing in parentheses. So again, parentheses are always going to be the top of what's called operator precedence. If you're from a math background or you went to middle school, it'll be like your PEMDAS, right? So parentheses are always going to be basically like executed last. So everything inside the parentheses gets executed, then we'll do something else. So by wrapping all of this in parentheses, I can do .round, and that's going to give me that times 100, and then we can just divide by 100. Oops. So now we get 3.6. That is a much better estimate than just going straight up to 4. And now we have our rounding, we have our conditional set up, and here's what that would actually get you. If we built a different schedule tab here, where you can see we have a filter that says schedule is checked, so we're only showing the ones that are checked, we can basically, number one, go in here and actually show our estimate table. So let's go ahead and find that estimate property and show it. We can add a calculate value of sum, and now this gives us a really helpful view where everything that is checked and scheduled on our daily task list has an estimate, and we can see that the sum is 6 hours of estimated work time. So that is our first formula. And just to recap kind of what we've covered here, we covered referencing properties inside of our formulas. We covered our mathematical operators. We covered if statements or conditional statements. We covered our rounding decimal place trick, and that's about it, actually. Now, I do want to actually do a few little mutations to this formula, and I'm going to show you how you could write it in a different way. because there are many different ways to actually do things inside of Notion. So for example, instead of wrapping this in parentheses and then doing dot round, I'm going to get rid of this. Note that I could also just put round here like that, and I get 240. And then I could do 2.4. So the reason I can do that, and if I pull up round, I can show you. Actually, it doesn't show me, so maybe our reference has it. Yes, it does. Okay. So Notion Formulas 2.0 has some flexibility in the ways that you can actually do your function calls. So you can do it the classic way that Notion used to require, where you basically just like type round and then you put all of your arguments inside of the parentheses. You can also do it in a newer way, which is common in JavaScript, which is called method chaining. Or I guess we call it function chaining this time. Method versus function is a topic for a different stream, a more programming stream. You could basically get your operation here, and that will be your first argument, and then you could pass it into the round function by using this chaining syntax. So as you get used to formulas and you start writing more formulas, you will start to develop preferences on which one you like. I personally like the method chaining syntax the most, but you can do this too. Okay. So I just wanted to show you that little quick thing. Another thing that I will show you really quickly is a quicker way to write if-then functions. And the way I think I'll do this is actually by duplicating this estimate property, just so I don't get rid of the formula I've just written. So I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate property, get that estimate there. Let's move that over here. And I'm gonna call this ternary. And you will see why I'm calling it ternary in just a second. So let's go ahead and get rid of all of this stuff. Earlier I did if, just like that. And then I did my first three arguments. So we did schedule, right? And then we did, let's just do some really, really basic ones. 1 if yes, 0 if no. We get 1 if it's checked, 0 if not. So a quicker way you can often write these if statements is with what's called the ternary syntax or the ternary operator. Now this gets kind of confusing because we call it the ternary operator, but there's actually two symbols in the ternary operator, and that is the question mark and the colon. So instead of that if statement, we can just do schedule, and the question mark is going to represent the true condition, and then the colon is going to represent the false condition. So if we do if schedule 1 colon 0, this basically is the exact same thing, but look how much less code it takes. So I often find myself using this ternary syntax when I want to get a quick and dirty formula made. If you are doing a lot of different stuff, then you might want to use the if then. So I'm going to go into questions now. We had one question saying, what was the command to get the formula on a second line again? That is just shift enter. So I'll do the if statement again. So I can just do if, I'll do parentheses, shift enter, just like that. Now you get a new line, and it automatically goes in indentation as well. So schedule, shift enter. Yeah, and when you are working with a function that takes multiple arguments, like if, you want to separate those arguments with commas, just like that. So I've got a comma there, and then there's 1, and then there's 0. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to quickly answer some questions, and then we're going to go on to our second formula of the stream. I've got a couple that Marissa put in the chat here, so I'm going to look at those really quickly. Dave asks, have I given Vim a second chance? I am not the Primogen. And I think even the Primogen is using VS Code these days. So no, I used Vim back in 2010, I think, when I got hired at a web development department on campus, and they shouldn't have hired me, but they did. I'm really happy they did, but they shouldn't have hired me because that job was like programming, and I didn't know how to do it, and I couldn't figure it out. But one thing I did try to get myself to do during that time was learn Vim, and it just didn't work. I don't know. It's cool if you're like in the 90s, I guess. Let's see here. So, do we have actual formula related questions here? Amy says, I'm getting a 0 when I type round. So, okay, I want to find that question, and maybe we can actually work on it here and see if we can debug it. So I didn't plan on doing live debugging of people's formulas, but this might actually be useful. And I wonder if I can click. Okay, cool. All right. Let's see if we can do something here. All right, so I'm gonna just take Amy's formula, which is in the chat. I'm gonna post it here, and I actually get a perfectly good result. So that's weird. And Amy's saying I'm getting 0 when I type round. So let's see here. And I am sharing the screen, right? I think I'm sharing the screen, hopefully. I think I'm sharing the screen. Let me make sure I'm in studio mode. I'm gonna do that just to make sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm sharing screen. Let me know if I'm not. But I see here, if I paste Amy's formula inside of my editor here, I'm getting a perfectly good result. So Amy, let me know if there's something else that you don't see here. But yeah, so some more questions that we'll get into. I don't know if there are specific formula questions beyond that, but I'll look at the ones that Marissa's collected for me. In fact, I can just, well, I'll just keep my head turned. So one person says, scrolled up, I have a main database and I linked it with another database. I want to customize the fields so that that template appears differently in the order of each appearance. If we're talking about database templates, I don't think you can actually customize the order there. So that's just something we can't do right now. Let's see here. If I have my employees' birthdays in one database, how can I put them into a calendar view so that every year it shows the right day for the specific year and is repeated? Hey, wouldn't you know, one of the formulas we're going to be building inside of this stream is a birthday calendar. And I'll go to the reference here. I'll spoil it. That's fine. We're going to get to it eventually. So we're going to literally build a formula where we have people's actual birthdays with their birth year. And we're going to create a formula that will show their next birthday. And we're going to add a little bit of intelligence to tell, has the birthday this year actually passed? Okay, we're going to say next year is their next birthday. And then you can literally get that calendar. So, you know, on the 11th, I got to make sure I tell Leonardo DiCaprio, happy birthday. 22nd, Scarlett Johansson's going to be expecting a birthday card from me. I got to make sure I'm on top of this influencer game, man. So yeah, we're going to do that as part of this stream. A couple more questions here. Let's see here. Will you be doing a stream on integrations? I tried to use Make to get a summary report from Toggle to Notion, and I wasn't able to get it work. That's from Christoph. Yes, we will absolutely be doing a stream on integrations. I'll just show it to you. The tool that I use for all of my integrations is Pipedream. And that is because they are way cheaper than Make and Zapier, way more powerful. So I'm going to probably be doing a stream on Pipedream first, but I think I'll also do one on Make because a lot of people are interested in Make.com. Maybe we'll do one on Zapier if we have enough interest as well. Cool. So let's see here. We have, what would you say the best way for someone who wants to know how to code, but has absolutely zero knowledge about it? Let me show you another resource. So on thomasjfrank.com, boy, this is really zoomed in, and I swear that was not secret advertising. If you go to Learn Notion, we have Notion automation here, and this is actually relevant to the question on how to learn how to code. If you go to Notion API guide right here, this is a full project that will teach you not only the Notion API, but also will link you to tons and tons of great resources on how to actually learn how to code. So basically, the Notion API was my inspiration to learn how to code, and I had to start from scratch. Literally, like, I was in Hawaii. I spent some time at the pool learning JavaScript on Free Code Camp. So inside of this crash course, which I will link to Marissa so she can link to you in the chat, there is a whole learning path. Let me see if I can find it for you. If we go down here, I might have it in the, here it is. Yep, full learning path and resource list in the what if I don't know how to code section. So check this out, because in here, I have linked to all the tools I use in this project. And this is the main thing. This is what I recommend everybody start with if they're trying to learn how to code, especially if you want to learn JavaScript. Check out this section here, my learning path on that project. And this JavaScript algorithms and data structures course, this is exactly what I took. So, you know, if you want to learn Python or something else, obviously this isn't the course for you, but if you want to learn Notion API, which I'm guessing a lot of you do because you're here, JavaScript is the language to learn for that without question. So take this course. I'm working also on a whole video for my main channel on how I learned how to code. So I'm going to be going through my exact learning path, everything that I use in terms of resources, the projects I picked. So keep your eyes peeled for that. I think it's going to be a great introductory video on learning how to code. Some more questions. I think we have one more question. Will the chat be available with the replay? I do believe so. I was worried about this. When I went in and I actually edited the intro out of the previous stream, it actually got rid of the chat. So I'm just going to leave the intros and all the streams so we hopefully can retain the chat, because I think there's a lot of good context in here as well. And I think that is probably it. Oh, there's one more question that I think Marissa's typing, so there's one more question I'll cover here. I think the chat is available, Marissa. It was deleted when I edited the stream. It should be back now. Feel free to check and let me know if I'm wrong. And then Ali says, you seem to have a lot of influence with Notion developers. Is there a way you could recommend that they make the round function simpler? I mean, we can definitely recommend that. I think that's actually come up. So the really nice thing about Formulas 2.0, that as a project, they were super duper inclusive of Notion ambassadors. So I would say like 3 months before it launched, we were being given the opportunity to do heavy testing and give lots of feedback. And a lot of that feedback was taken into account. And there were even like up to the wire changes that were the result of ambassador feedback. So we can definitely ask them. However, I gotta say that little rounding trick is really, really easy to learn once you kind of get it. And one person is asking, can you explain with round why you have to multiply by 100 then divide by 100 in the round formula? Yes, I can. I will try my best to put my math teacher hat on really quickly. And we'll do that real quick. Okay, so let's take round here and let's just take a really, really simple number, just a straight up number here. Let's just take 1.235, right? So that's going to give us 1, right? Because what round is actually doing, and I think I can show you this on my formula reference. Maybe I even have it up. Yes, I do. So what round is doing is, let me see if I can pull this up and show you better. It's basically tilting towards the nearest integer, right? So if I have what did I have? 1.235. The nearest integer is 1. If I were at 1.5, the nearest integer is going to be 2, right? So the reason that I drew the graphic tilting to the right here is basically just to show that if you are at 1.5, if you're at the exact midpoint of 2 integers like 0 and 1, then you're going to go up towards the greater integer. That's why this is tilting to the right. Trunk is very different. Trunk is one function we don't have in Notion, but it is in JavaScript. That literally just chops the decimal off and leaves the integer that's already there. So that's why we have like a curve here. Ceiling will go towards the next integer that is greater than the number we have. So even if I had 1.1, we would literally go to 2. And then floor is the opposite. If I had 1.1, we'd go to 1. If I have negative 1.1, we'd go to negative 1. Whereas with round, I think we'd go to positive or to 0. So if we go back here, trying to put my math teacher hat on really quickly, the reason that the whole multiplication trick works is it moves the decimal point temporarily. So again, with round, we are moving towards the nearest integer. So we have 1.235, that brings us to 1. If we multiply this by 100, now we get 124, right? We're moving the decimal point place 2, so we have 123 essentially. And then what we have to do to actually get the correct value is to then divide by the same number. So that gives us 1.24. And there's a Harley Davidson rider behind me, Boss Hog. All right. Actually, I don't think Boss Hog rides a motorcycle. Okay. And one person is asking, so does trunk actually change the number instead of the stupid little reaction thing is like cutting off instead of what you see for the number like rounding? So trunk literally just takes a number, any number, 1.275, it chops off anything after the decimal point. It doesn't do anything else. It doesn't tilt the number any which way. It literally is just chopping it off and leaving you with the integer that you had. And again, that's a function we don't have in Notion formulas. If you need it, I think this might even have it, or maybe my ceiling or floor has it. In here somewhere, we do actually have some documentation. Here it is. Yep, trunk, on how to do trunk in Notion formulas. It's basically just a conditional. And that's it. Okay, so I will ask Marissa to collect other questions, and we are going to move on to formula number 2 in this lesson. And I will make sure that I'm on screen. I think I am. Yes, I am. Cool. So we're going to build a simple habit tracker. And here you can see we have a fun little habit tracker. I've got some habits. They actually have names. If I bring this out, you can see this is water, this is workout. And so every day you could create a table entry in this table. And then for each of these habit properties, you could just check them off. And so what we want to create, if we go to our little reference here, is a little habits formula that shows us how well we did for the day. And then we can average that together on any view of the database. So this is stepping things up just a little bit from our first formula. And essentially what we need to do is convert these checkbox values, which are Boolean values, to numbers. And then we can do some, typical old school arithmetic on them and do some averaging. So once again, let's create ourselves a formula property. Let's call this habits. And maybe we can even give it a cool little icon. Again, we're embracing our whimsy today. So our habits get a high heel. I don't know why. And I'm going to move it over here again, just so you can see the editor a little bit better. So again, what we want to do is add up each of these and then divide by, well, if we want to get an average, how do you get that? You get the number of things and then you divide it by that, right? So basically what we want to do is we have a number of habits and then each one of them is going to count as a point. So let's say we got 3 of them done in a day. That would literally just be 3 divided by the number of habits we have. That's 4. And there is our score for the day, 0.75. Now I'm going to leave this 0.75 here because what I want to do is make sure this is outputting a number. That way I can go back into my edit property and I can set this as a bar or as a ring. And we are also going to format this as a %. And that's how we actually get that nice little ring graph there with our 75%. But of course, 3 is just a hard-coded value. So it's giving us the same result for all of these rows. And obviously, that's not correct. I forgot to do the voice. That is not correct. Should be 50% here, should be 100% here. So instead of a hard-coded 3, what we need to do is actually count up how many of these are checked. So if I were to reference read here, oops, I went to create a time for some reason, read, I would get a checkbox. Now in Notion Formulas 1.0, if you are old school, you would know that Booleans got automatically coerced to numeric values in situations where it was needed. So, and this actually happens in JavaScript too, I believe. If you have a true value that just equates to 1, and if you have a false value that equates to 0. In Notion Formulas 2.0, that does not work. I cannot do read plus water. It just gives me true false. It wouldn't give me 1 plus 1. So we have this handy method that is called toNumber, and anything that can be coerced to a number will get coerced to a number here. So read is 1, and that gets coerced to a number, just like that. If I were to put the number 1 in parentheses, that is what's called a string value. So it's 1, but it's 1 as text. If I did 1 plus 1, we'd get 1, 1, right? If I did 1 plus 1 outside of quotation marks, we'd get 2 or 200% in this case, because we're outputting as percents. So again, this is a bit of review on data types. String values are just text. You can't do numerical, mathematical operations on them. Numbers, you can. So we have to kind of coerce our Boolean values to numbers, and we can use toNumber for that. So basically, you can probably follow along with what we're doing here. We need to do that with all of our different properties. Water, toNumber, plus workout, toNumber. And our 4th habit is clear email. The one I'm the worst at, toNumber. And you know, let's make another one just to kind of show you how you could do this. So I do a plus, checkbox property, fight bears in hand-to-hand combat. And win. Every single day. Without fail, Tom. And a cool thing with checkbox properties is even if we have this super duper long checkbox here, we can just make it like that. So it only shows the icon. So obviously every single day I checked off my fighting bears habit. I never failed to do that one. And then I dance in the forest like that scene in Hot Rod. So just like before, we can do plus fight bears. And this is a really nice reason for being able to just enter instead of typing out the entire thing. toNumber. So now we have 400%. And again, we're going back to our PEMDAS here, right? If we're getting an average, we need to add up all of the things we're averaging and then divide by the number of things we're averaging. But of course, because of PEMDAS, we need to get that all in parentheses. And I'll make this a little easier to see and also demonstrate once more that indentation. So Shift Enter just like that. Shift Enter just like that. And I can do Shift Tab to bring things out of indentation. And then a nice little thing we might want to do is to put these all in their own lines. Just like that. So now it's a little bit less crazy to look at. And all we have to do after that is divide by the number of habits we have, which of course is now 5. And you can see now we have 80% compliance for the day. I didn't clear my email. We have 60% compliance for the day. Didn't clear my email. Tuesday, did clear my email. 100% compliance. So that one might have actually been a little bit easier to explain than the first one. Maybe I should have put that first, but I figured that the toNumber type conversion would have required a little bit of extra preamble. So yeah, again, we'll go check our reference, see if there's anything else fancy we did. I don't think we did. Nope, we just made this all into one line, but otherwise it's the exact same. So that, my friends, is the simple habit tracker, and that is how you could build one for yourself if you wanted to. I do think that Notion is not really great for habit tracking. And that is like, if you go into like the database design for habit tracking, and I've done this, I've gone into this for years, you start to realize like having your databases more hidden on the back end really benefits a habit tracker, because in Notion, like you see the table. So what happens if you add a new habit, like it just gets really, really messy to deal with. So, for habit tracking specifically, you can do it in Notion. If you loved what we just made, feel free to use it. Obviously, use whatever works. But I think dedicated habit tracking apps like Habitica and Streaks, if you don't want the video game elements, are a little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to go into a few different questions here, and then we're going to go on to formula number 3. So Marissa's got a few helpfully collected for me over here. One person says, I'm attempting to build a Notion database that keeps inventory. Can you suggest tips for pulling a previous record and getting quantities of that product and then doing some math to change the values? That, I think that's probably like a video or a stream. So let's maybe save that for near the end of the stream. If we have some time and I have voice left over, we could do that, because that seems like we need to literally build something. Okay, how can you convert a number like 0.12 blah, blah, blah into a percent? Is there some sort of short function? That's a good question. You're asking me to be a better math teacher than I might be. But what you might be asking is actually pretty simple. So let me go down here and make a page. We'll call this percent, and I'm going to make a database. And let's create ourselves a number property. Let's call this database cheese with a Z, of course. Why not? And let's create a number property so we can actually get ourselves a number like the question in the chat is asking about. So if we have, what was the number? 0.12358. That's good enough, I think. So if you want to represent this as a percent, there's actually no formula you have to do. You can just go into your number property settings and format this as a percent, and there you go. So hopefully that actually answers the question. If you're asking me about like an actual percentage conversion thing, I think you would literally just move your decimal points 2 places to the right, I think, and that gets you the percentage. But hopefully I'm not wrong on that. Okay, Sarah asks, any way to make it so that if you add a new property, it automatically knows, and you don't have to rewrite the formula to /6? Unfortunately, no. That's the problem there. There's no way in Notion formulas to know how many properties are in the entire database. I would love for that. So that was actually one of the big requests that myself and other ambassadors had during the Formulas 2.0 project, is we asked, hey, we want functions for getting meta information about our workspaces. We want to know, say, the word count for in the page content. We want to know like how many pages does this page contain, all that kind of stuff. So that might come in the future. You know, they weren't very committal about it, but we definitely suggested it. And something like how many properties are in the database, or how many checkbox properties are in the database, would be the way to solve that. For now, you just kind of have to edit the formula, which is, again, the reason why I don't think Notion is the best tool out there for habit tracking. It's really great for other things, but for habit tracking, I have just banged my head against a wall trying to figure it out for a long time, and there's just no good solution for it. Okay, let's see here. Tim Kroll asks, do the new formulas allow us to use rollup properties and functions? Yes, they do, and I think we might be using that in this video, but if we don't, what I will show you right now is the Thomas Frank Explains YouTube channel. Hey, look, that's what we're doing right now. If you go to the Notion Formulas 2.0 masterclass I posted a month ago, that basically does roll-up style stuff in that video, and it's a 46-minute long video. So I'm pretty thorough in the explanation. The reason I'm doing this stream is that the formula I picked to build in that was a formula that it took me 46 minutes to build and explain, just one. So here we're doing 6, at least 6 actually. So more questions. Is there a way to make it count the number of checkbox fields? Oh, that's the same question. Nope, unfortunately not. Let's see here. I have another recommendation if you can pass it on to Notion. How can we round the totals at the bottom of the page that calculate the sum, average values of all values? Yeah, this is a very common, request. We've been asking for rounding on the calculate functions for many, many times. I'm guessing the collections team, which is their internal name for databases. I'm guessing the collections team is busy with other things. So, we've asked for that and it hasn't shown up yet. I really wish it would. Hopefully soon it does. I think it might actually do it for numbers, but not formulas. So it's just like, it's one of those tech debt things that probably just doesn't get high on the priority list because they have other big things they're working on, like scoped permissions and stuff like that. Okay. I don't see any more questions. I'm sure Marissa will get them for me. So we are going to go on to formula number 3. And this is actually the one that somebody asked for. So I'm super happy that my predictions for useful formulas actually came true. So we're going to build a next birthday calendar. And basically, if you've got, say, a team or you're friends with all these great celebrities, like I definitely am, you could put their birthdays in here. And I definitely didn't get these birthdays from ChatGPT. I just know them all. And I've given many great presents to Ryan Reynolds. I actually gave him the idea for that tequila company. Wait, that's not even a good joke. He makes a gin. But we're going to create a little next birthday formula here that will show their next upcoming birthday. And then we can create a nice little calendar view here. And that's what we're going to build. And there's a question, is there a way to calculate a word count of documents in a database? I wish you could. You could probably do it with some crazy API thing, but not through formulas or anything inside of Notion. So next birthday, what we have here is our celebrities and we have our birthdays. Let's go ahead and create a formula property called next birthday. And I want a cake emoji or icon, I suppose. Oh, cupcake or cake? I would say vote in the chat, but there's a delay. So I'm just going to go with cake. Also, I'm the dictator of this stream. Okay. So what we're going to be working with in this formula is a new function called parse date. So basically, parse date says right here, returns the date parsed according to the ISO 8601 standard. The moment you use a word like ISO 8601, people fall asleep. There's like an old adage. I can't remember who said this, but in book publishing, it's like for every equation you put in a book, it cuts the sales in half. Every time you say ISO 8601 on a stream, it cuts your viewers in half. So we need a cooler way to say ISO 8601. I'm just going to call it rad dates. But I'll actually explain what ISO 8601 is. It basically is this format right here. Year, month, date. And it's specifically 4 digits in the year, 2 digits in the month, 2 digits in the date, even if it is under 10. So you have 01, that is ISO 8601. And then if you do want a time in there for some reason, you then add capital T, you do a timestamp, and then you put Z if you really want a time zone. We're not going to be messing with the time zones or the times. We're just going to be messing with the dates here. So parse date will basically allow you to take a string value as long as it conforms to what I'm going to call rad dates, because that won't kill my stream viewers. And it will actually turn into a date object, which will allow it to be on a calendar. So if you're thinking like put your problem solving cap on here, how would we use a function like parse date to basically transform this date with a fixed static year to a new date that has the next year for the next upcoming birthday in it, right? Well, what if we could chop this year off of all these dates, leave ourselves with just the month and just the day, and then we could get the current year or the next year, depending on if we are past their birthday this year, and put that on the end, right? Or I guess put it on the beginning because we're using rad dates, right? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take the actual birthday, just like that, and then we can use another function called format date. So format date is kind of the opposite of parse date. It's a function that will allow us to actually pass in a date and then format it any way we want. And I believe it uses what are called the moment strings for like the rules here. And I don't want to open that. So oopsie. Go away, email. Don't share all of my confidential secrets and evil business plans with my viewers, please and thank you. If we go back to our formula reference really quickly, I'll show you. I accidentally opened my email and lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, moment timestamps. So if we go to the format date article we have here, we have formatting tokens. That's what they're called. And we have a whole list of these formatting tokens. So this will show you the token you can use to get a specific type of output, like the hours or AM or PM or the day of the month or the day of the year, all that kind of stuff. We have a whole reference for that. So check that out if you're trying to build dates for yourself. But going back to Notion, we want to go into format date. Again, we're using the method chaining syntax. So if we look at the format date functions reference here, you can see that here it is basically showing we can have now as the first argument. Birthday would be here, but because we're using method chaining, birthday is on the left and then we're doing dot. So basically that just is the same thing. We still need to put the second argument inside the parentheses though, and the second argument is going to be basically what we want it to look like. So if we're trying to keep it with the rad dates formatting here, we want to do mm-dd. So check that out. Now we have 4-15 and we don't have the year. And if we want to get the year, we can use another function called year. So if I enter down here, let's just get that year function like that. And I can pass it the argument of now. Now is a very simple function that just gets us the current date and time. And if I do say plus, just like that, now you can see we get 2023 without a dash 415. So to fix that, I can just do a little dash string, just like that, and another plus addition operator. I'm going to get this all on one line because I think you'll be able to still pretty easily tell what's going on with one line. Oops. Oh, it won't let me. It won't let me. That's annoying. So I'll just do this. Birthday again. There we go. So there it is. Rad date. Year, month, day. Look at that. So now that we have a string in rad date format, look what we can do. We can use our PEMDAS once again to create a parenthesis that encapsulates this entire operation in one group, and then we can pass that into parse date. And look at that, April 15th, 2023, and it's an actual date property. But we're already kind of past April 15th, 2023. So if I built it this way, whoops, I forgot to give Emma Watson a birthday present, and now I'm getting uninvited to, I don't know, her big soiree. I was going to say wedding, but I don't know if she's married. I don't know anything about that. Okay, so we need to once again rely on our old friend conditional logic to figure out if we are already past this next birthday, and if so, we just want to add 1 to the year. So to do that, we need to once again break into our handy dandy if statements, and we might actually, let me think about it, we might actually break into variables as well. So let's think through the problem before we start coding. This is actually a super duper common thing in programming. It's called pseudocode. So you basically think through the logic of what we're going to be doing before you start touching code. Because if you touch code first, you'll create spaghetti code, and you might create a flying spaghetti monster that you can create a religion out of, but you will not create good code, and you'll probably not solve your problem. So let's think here. We want to check if the current date is later than the date of their birthday this year. If it is, then we want to output basically this, but add 1 year. And if it's not, we want to output this without adding a year. So I think we can do that by using the date between method. So we're going to do if here, and I'm just going to build this. I'm gonna put it on my clipboard. So let's go ahead and cut it just like that. And we're going to bring in that date between method. Now there is one called date subtract where you can subtract 2 days. And this will actually give you a different date, but we want date between because date between is going to give us the number of days or weeks or months, any unit you choose, between 2 dates. The first date you pass is going to be the later of the two, and then the middle one will be the earlier of the two. So if you flip-flop them, they would get negative. So we're going to do date between, and then our first argument will be now, just like that. And check this out. I'm going to do Shift-Enter one more time, and I'm going to start building this nice multi-indented, multi-line formula that's easier to read. So now will be my first argument. And then this bad boy is going to be our second argument. Copy that to my clipboard. And then I want the third argument to be days. So this, in fact, if we get rid of the ifs, we should be able to see what's going on. And this is also a great tip here. Just like get rid of your if statements if you're building stuff and you're not quite sure what you're doing. Then you can actually output and see what's up. So 202 days. Now let's do a gut check there, sanity check. It's November 3rd, April 15th was the birthday, 202 days. That sounds about right. So I think we did that correctly. Cool. So I'm gonna put my if back, just like that. And now we need our if arguments. So here is the rub. Here's the rub. Let me level with you for a second. I don't want my formulas to be messy. And I don't think you want your formulas to be messy either. This is like the Captain America thing. Like, so you got in trouble, so you leaked your own nudes. So we might want to be a little bit smarter about this formula, because if we want to output this as the true and false condition with a little bit of change, we're going to have to copy and paste it, right? So we can basically do that, right? We can just paste there, and we can paste there. And then if we do year now plus 1, that should fix it. And let's see here. I messed up. Let's see here. Now, oh, that's why. I need to put the 1 after year. Year plus 1. And yeah. And I think just for sanity's sake, I'm going to put those in parentheses too. So now we have April 15, 2024. Look at this though. Look how messy this is. We have the same line of code repeated essentially just like that. I mean, it works. It does work. So actually, you know what? I don't think it works. I think we bugged something. Yeah, we bugged something. Let me know in the chat how you would fix this bug, but it's all saying November 2024. Okay, so, and I think I know why, because our conditional here is just date between. It's outputting a number, but then we're not really giving it a condition. It's just a number. So we want to change this here. So if the date between now and the famous person's birthday this year is greater than 0, then we get it. Okay, so now November 11th, 2023, Leonardo's birthday is next week. Got to remember that. September 4 for Beyonce, that's next year. So it's all working, right? It's all working. But again, look at this mess. Look at this repeated code. This is terrible. So let's fix this, right? Let's make it a little bit better. Something Notion formulas recently added is variables. We can basically take a whole big calculation just like this, and we can put it into a variable, and then we can use that variable later on so we don't have super messy code. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Right after I answer this question, is that green minus in quotes a string working as a, oh man, the little reaction thing is just like covering the last word. It's so annoying. I already asked YouTube to fix this. Oh, that's a little bit better. Working as a math function, or is it just displaying a dash? It is the latter. So here, as a little bit of review, if you have anything inside of these double quotation marks, that is a string value. So that makes it into a just a piece of text. If I were to have dash without the quotation marks, then that would be a subtraction operator. But because it's in quotation marks, it's just a string. And again, what that's doing is that's getting us that rad date ISO 8601 format where it's year. So 2023 dash the month and month dash day. Okay. So again, we want to make this a little bit less messy, a little bit less spaghetti. We do not want to summon a spaghetti monster. So what we can do is start to massage this formula with some variables. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of our conditional output statements here. And we might even just get rid of everything here just to fix this. So I'm going to copy that bit of code to my clipboard one more time. That is what's going to, once again, create our rad date format. And in fact, let's just get rid of everything. You've seen how we built it. It's going to be in the replay. So we're just going to rebuild it and make it better, faster, stronger, but I don't have a lot of money. Okay, so that's why we're getting that output. If I remove parse date, you can see the rad date format just like that. Let's keep parse date though. We want that. And we're going to put this into a variable. So the variable function in Notion is called let, just like that. Let has 3 different arguments, I believe. Let's see if I can find it. For whatever reason, it's not bringing it up in the little thingy. So I'll just explain it instead of being able to show it to you. I do wish they would fix that a little bit because I can't see it there. It has 3 different arguments. The first one is going to be the name of your variable. Let's call it birthday. The second argument is going to be what that name is storing in terms of an operation. And that's going to be everything we created there that outputs the current year birthday. It's not yet doing the logic for adding the 1 year if we're past this year's birthday. We're going to do that in a second. But it is at least getting it into the current year. And then if we, for the third argument, just type birthday, look at that. We just get exactly what this is. So the third argument is basically just the return value, and you can use the variable in that third argument, but it can be any kind of formula. So now we have birthday. Now for that third argument, we can get back into our if. So now we can do if date between, with now being our first argument, the later date or potentially later date. If now and our birthday date in days is greater than 0, just to show you how this works, let's just say yes for our true condition, no for our false condition. Yes. No. Yes. No, no. Look at that. So here you can see we only had to write our date code once, and now we can just say birthday instead of having to write it again and again and again. So to round this formula out, let's go ahead and get rid of our yes and no conditions and instead output our dates. So if yes, we actually want to add 1 year. So the way we can do that is with date add. So let's do birthday, date add. And then if we look at the date add reference here, we have 3 arguments, the date we're passing in. And again, we're using the method chaining syntax. So it's on the left here with a dot. Our second one is going to be the unit or the number of units we're going to be adding. And then the third is going to be the actual units. So we can use years, quarters, months, days, hours, weeks, eons, centuries, and time immemorial. Those last 3 might be made up. So we're going to do 1 and years. Otherwise, we're just going to put birthday. Cool. And then I think we have a little blank space, baby, which we're going to get rid of instead of writing your name on it. And look at that. Next birthday, April 15th, 2024, November 11th, 2023. So now what we can do is get ourselves a handy dandy calendar view on this Notion database template. And if we go into the view options and we go to, I think it's layout, we can show calendar by and choose a property. So right now it's calendaring by birthday, which has their birth year. And that's why this isn't super duper useful. If we change this to next birthday, now look at that. There's Leonardo's birthday. There's Scarlett's birthday. Go over to next month. Now we got Taylor Swift, Brad Pitt, all these cool people who I definitely know and talk to all the time. Okay, so one person's asking, can I show the formula in the full formula in the view? I wish I could. Let me see here. Let's do online ID. Let's go to, yeah. Can I just like post code in here? I think I can. This might help. Okay. This isn't going to be Notion formula syntax, but I will at least be able to show you the entire formula in one view. There's one problem with this Notion formula. That was actually a request I gave them. Was I want content creator view for the formula editor. I want to be able to basically get this to go away. So literally for this exact purpose, I could show you the entire formula. So instead, let's just do this. Hopefully it pastes in. I think that's it. Yeah, that's the entire formula. Feel free to take a screenshot of that. Obligatory marketer plug, our tool Flylighter, which I'll show you right now. Flylighter.com will have a screenshot tool directly in it. So you could easily capture a page to your Notion databases, even with a screenshot. So if you had Flylighter, which is launching quite soon, we've got a waitlist right down there, you'd be able to take a screenshot of that, send it directly to a brand new Notion page, and boom, you have a formula reference. Look at that. Okay. Are there any questions, Marissa, that I need to get to before we before we go on to our next formula challenge? I'm not seeing any in the Slack, so I'll check real quick here in the chat just to see if there's anything important. No, just a lot of people posting formulas. So that's pretty cool. Awesome. All right. Everyone knows exactly what they're doing. There's no questions. Everyone is perfectly retaining all the information. Okay. There actually is one. Okay. So Sean says, let me go to full screen view so I can present a little better. Is there any way to use this date formula within a project that has multiple tasks with specific dates every time that project is created? For example, I booked a photo shoot next month. Once I set the shoot date, the tasks that automatically populate when I open that photo shoot template have specific dates based on the shoot date. So there is a way to do that. That might literally be like a good challenge for a more what's the word I'm trying to think of right now? Advanced stream. You can do it, and I might have even done it in a video. So let me show you the video where I might have done it. Basically, you need to use either a button or a status automation. I think I showed in both the status automations, and I need to show the screen here. I think I showed in the status automations video and in the buttons video how you could add default tasks to like a template. So basically, like you spawn a project, and then you could either use a button or a status automation to create brand new tasks that are related to that project. And then You could actually take, I think there's a way to do this. You could take the project date and then create dates of the tasks based on it, but they would be formula dates. They wouldn't be date property dates. So the problem there is you wouldn't be able to edit them if you needed to, since formulas are read-only. I guess one way you could do it is you could write the formula so that if there is a date in a date property, it displays that. And if there isn't, it displays the calculated date. I think that is a thing that would take us probably about half an hour to build and explain thoroughly. So I'm going to save that for another stream if I didn't go through it here. And I'll ask Marissa to actually write that down as a good question. Cool. Okay, so are there any other ones? People asking about Flyletter. Yeah. So will Flyletter parse recipes from food websites? I think it actually will. Our lead developer, Eli, is the person who is like doing most of the work on Flyletter. So I actually have not done any coding work on Flyletter other than the Notion voice notes thing, which will probably make its way into Flyletter. I don't know if they'll use my code. Maybe Eli will be like, nice try, but this is amateur. Who knows? But yeah, I do believe that food recipes can be parsed quite easily because that is a piece of actual structured HTML data. There's like a recipe tag, I think. So we can just target that and grab the recipe and Bob's your uncle. I also want to know the etymology of Bob's your uncle. Okay, let's hear. Will Flyletter be paid, free, or some of each? Yeah, we're going to have a free tier and a paid tier. We're still figuring out what needs to go into paid and what needs to go into free. I really want to make this as open of a journey into building a sustainable startup as possible. So I'll let you know our values up front. We don't want to take VC funding. We want to build like a sustainable, calm business that employs a couple of people and that just provides really good tools to people. And the big idea here is that Flyletter should give you the most powerful set of capture tools for knowledge and ideas, but also let you use the tools that you're already using as your second brain. So Notion in this case, instead of it being like a place that just you have to go to on your phone as well. Cool. Okay, so we are going to go back to our regularly scheduled educational content. One person is asking, will there be a beginner pipe dream to Notion stream? Oh yeah, there definitely will be. I want to make like a whole course on pipe dream. I think that pipe dream might be one of the best ways for people to learn how to code in 2023. It's just amazing. Like the pipeline from I get a little no code component that I can just do something cool in Notion with to, okay, well, let me customize by writing some code, in my opinion, is just such a motivating way to get the desire to learn how to code. Whereas when I was trying to do stuff in the past with the Notion API, like in VS Code, there's all these super intimidating articles saying like, okay, you need to set up a Node.js, you need to set up an NPM thing. And I just got overwhelmed. With Pipedream, it was just like, oh, I can add a code step to like, I don't know, do something to some code. I'll just make a little change and boom, I've solved my problem. So yeah, we're definitely gonna do that. And one person is asking with parse date how to have the final date in DEMMYYY. So that is actually not a parse date question, I don't think. I think that's actually a date view question. So let me check here and see if we can actually do that in formulas. I'm not sure if it'll let us. So it doesn't look like it will. Let's try it with birthday. If we edit the property. Yeah, so with date properties, it actually will give us a date format. So we can do year, month, day, month, year, month, day, year. I think Europeans do day, month, year. I don't know why y'all do that, but you do. But it looks like if we're outputting date objects in a formula property, oops, we need to go into the settings here. It doesn't give us those formatting options. So that is actually a good thing for us to ask Notion to give us, is those date formatting choices in formula properties that are outputting dates. Okay. Let's see here. I think I've gotten most of these. There's one question from Tim. How do you get the result to show on the second line in the formula sheet like you're showing here? I don't know if I quite understand that question. So I'll just remind you, if you want to get a second line here, that's going to be Shift Enter. And then right here, this is just where it outputs the result of the formula. So going back to our lesson count, now we have note count. So what are we going to do here? We're going to create a little note and tag database. And if you want to learn how to do this, my last stream was 2.5 hours, I think, on how to create a full note-taking database. We have a video in the works. It's going to be a much shorter version of that. But we have a tags database here. And I think if I go into it, I have a bunch of notes that are related to this tag. Same thing for SaaS marketing. And here we actually are showing how many notes are actually in each of these tags. So for priming, I'm going to show you this formula really quick. It's actually fairly simple. And then we're going to go build it. So let's go over to our note count workbook here. We have our tags database all set up. We have our notes database all set up. I built that ahead of time like a good teacher who preps his materials beforehand. So all we have to do is create ourselves a note count property. So once again, formula property just like that. We're going to call it note count. And what's a good icon for counting? Like a vampire? Do we have a vampire with the count? That garlic. You know what? We're going with garlic. We're going with garlic, baby. Yeah, if the count comes in here and tries to count my notes, I got a surprise for him. Okay, so the way we can actually get the note count is by using a little function called length. And length basically just returns the length of, here it says, text or a list value. So basically, if it's, and I can show you here, if we did like Thomas Frank, let's do a more fun string. Monkey D. Luffy. Who here's watching One Piece on Netflix? I think it's pretty good. If we do dot length, just like that, now we can see 15 is the length of this string. Now, another thing you can do in Notion is use one of their new data types called a list, which is also called an array, to basically create like an ordered list of objects. So if I use the brackets just like that, I can start creating a list. So let's create ourselves a list of pirates. Let's get Luffy in there. Let's get Nami in there. Let's get Blackbeard in there. And let's get Justin Timberlake in there because he made Napster in that Social Network movie. So if we do dot length on this, check it out, we get 4. So it's not counting the number of characters in the strings, it's counting the number of elements in this list, also known as an array. I will probably say array on accident, even though Notion uses list as their official term. So as that with some, with what am I trying to say here? With that as our little prep knowledge here, let's start getting the number of notes in each of our tags. So the way we can do that is by actually referencing our notes relation here. And I guess I should give you a bit of preliminary explanation on how this is set up in case you haven't built a note-taking system like this before. Basically, we have a tags database, and then we have a notes database. And so we have what's called a relation property, which I will show real quick here. I'll just show it. And this is a property where we can relate pages in the notes database to pages in the tags database. And a really good way to think about this is like folders on your computer, right? So you might have a folder called pictures, and you might have a subfolder called downhill unicycling. And then you have 5 video clips, all of guys that are downhill unicycling. Maybe it's you. So those are going to be in your downhill unicycling folder on your computer. That's what you actually see. On the back end, it might be something like a table of all of the pictures on your hard drive. But then it's like, it's a table of properties, like columns. So there's a column called folder, and then that folder would be the downhill unicycling folder for those 5. So you have that table there, but then when you actually go into the page or into the folder, downhill unicycling, you only see the photos that have that property for that particular folder. So that's kind of how relation works. And that would let you sort of go into, say, a guitar thing, and you could create like a list of all the notes. But we're going to get the count of those notes. So that's hopefully some pretty good preliminary information here. Now, when I reference this notes relation, what you can see I get is just a list of all of the pages. So again, just like what we just created with the list of pirates, this is a list, and I get them all here, which means I can do dot length, and it gives me 6. Check that out. So let's go check and see if guitar has 6 notes in it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1 more. That makes 6. And yeah, so length is giving us the number of notes. And then if we wanted to be really, really quick and dirty about this, we could just do plus notes. And there it is. 6 notes, 1 notes, 12 notes. Boom. But we have one little problem here, and that problem is plurality. Plural. Basically, if we have 1 note, we're still seeing 1 notes. So again, we need to get a little bit of conditional formatting to output either the word note or notes, depending on if the count is 1. So once again, let's get ourselves a conditional statement. And in fact, we've already done a couple of conditionals here before that we're using the if function. So let's use ternary this time, right? We're going to do notes.length equals 1. So here we're getting yes, but for the rest of them, we're getting no. So now with our conditional out of the way, we can do our true expression. So if it is true, it's going to do this after the question mark. We will do notes.length plus notes or note. And if not, the else condition goes on the right side of the colon symbol. We will do notes.length. And I do realize I made a typo over there. Plus notes. And let me go fix this reference here. Cool. So now we have 1 note, 6 notes. We're all good to go. To make this look a little bit better, I'm also going to add a bit of styling. So once again, I'm going to add some parentheses to make this all one absolute unit. And then cool thing, you don't have to do dot style here. You can actually enter down and do it there, and it still works. So dot style is a function that basically lets you style whatever the first argument is, which is going to be this resulting string. And there's a whole lot of different things you can do. You can do italics, you can do code styling, you can do strike through, and you also can do text colors and background colors. So I'm going to go ahead and do a few here. And just to show you them a bit more clearly, I'm going to enter down, shift enter. My favorite one by far is C for code. It just creates this nice little rounded box around our note. So that's really nice. Cool. So I'm going to do another one. I'm going to do B for bold. I'm going to do blue for blue text. And I'm going to do blue background with an underscore for our background. And look at that. It just looks so much nicer than without that style. So I'll hit done there. And then over my list, I'm going to go to view options. And I'm going to go ahead and set my note count to visible. And there it is. That is our note count property. Check it out. Cool. So I'm going to do a couple of different questions here. I think Nerdy Notioneer is also answering questions in the chat, which is awesome. Thank you so much. Cool. So let's hear. Amy says, why do you need the space after the quotation mark and before note or notes? That is literally just a space character. So watch what happens if I don't do it. If I get rid of those space characters, now it's just 6 notes, 1 notes, 12 notes. You know, if you really like that, you could do that. But so basically, like the gist here is when you're building out a string, you have to specifically say what you want in it. And if that includes spaces, you need to specifically include spaces. So that's why I'm putting spaces there. I'm literally just inserting a space between the number and the actual notes word there. Cool. Okay. Thomas, is it possible to insert selection links in addition to styles? Guess what it is? It is. So what else would you want to link to if you were me trying to promote your startup? Then flyletter.com. Check this out. If I wanted to, for whatever reason, make all of these linked to flyletter.com, I could do the .link function. Check that out. And then if we look at it here, the first argument is the text, which of course we are passing in with the method chaining syntax. And our second argument is the URL. So all we would need is that URL just like that. And now it links to a web page. A more useful trick, if you're not cheekily marketing your startup, but you might want to actually link to something useful, is you can actually pass in a page ID. And we actually did that in the masterclass right here. So the big formula we built in this Notion Formulas 2.0 masterclass was we had a database of videos, and then we had a database of channels, and we outputted the top 3 videos per channel by their view counts. And then we actually had a link to both the video on YouTube and also the video on Notion. So you can go see the script and all that kind of stuff. So if you want to learn how to actually link to like a page in Notion, check that video out. It's pretty easy actually. And maybe I could even do it here. Let me see if I can do that. I'm just going to go ahead and create a really quick and dirty formula down here in notes. And I think I can show you how to do it. So we're going to go to formula. We're going to call this link to Notion page. And this will just kind of show you how we can actually do that. I'm going to go ahead and find my tag just like that. I'm going to do something a little more advanced. I don't know if we'll go through this in this stream, but I'm going to quickly do it. I'm going to do .map and I'm going to do .current. So basically mapping just sort of gets into the relation, and then current is a keyword that represents the current one. Definitely watch that Notion Formula 2.0 masterclass if you want to understand map. It's basically the star of the show in that video. And then if I do name, now I'm going to get SaaS marketing like that. Check it out. But what I could actually do is do .link. And then inside of link, I could do current.id, I believe. There we go. Let's see if it worked. SaaS marketing should open me up to SaaS marketing. Yes, it does. Now, there is some weirdness with the way that links are rendered and how they open. So if it's an actual page reference, I believe it can open in SidePeek just like that. If it's text that is linking the same way, for whatever reason, it opens in a new tab. So that's another thing that I've asked Notion to work on. But yes, that is how you could actually link to something. And here we are actually linking to a dynamic value. And if you are linking to a Notion page, you can just use the ID function to actually get into that. So I think we're going to move on to our next one, the project progress, which is going to be fairly similar, but I'm going to check out some questions really quick before we do that. And also take a drink of my drink because I've been talking for, I don't know how long, an hour and 25 minutes without drinking anything. That's my superpower. Okay, let's see here. Is there any reason why you would not want a leading space in that set of quotations versus a separate space string and quotes between the other strings? I don't think so. There might be a reason for it, but I can't quite think of it right now. So yeah, that was Jeff's question. Let's see here. Laura asks, can we count only notes with a specific attribute? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. In fact, maybe we'll go ahead and do that right now. I think that'll actually be a great thing to add on to this lesson. So great question, Laura. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly. So we had note counter in there, and I think for some reason I broke it. Why did I break it? Oh yeah, because I have link in there for no reason. So let's get rid of that. 6 notes. Okay. So let's add a property to our notes database. Let's get rid of this real quick. And let's just say we'll have a property called to review. So we'll do a checkbox, or maybe we do a select. Here we go. Yeah. Actually, we'll call it like lecture, book note, that kind of thing. So SaaS business model, we'll call that an idea. User acquisition strategies, that's idea. So let's grab here, add a few different values. Here we'll do lecture, and here we'll do idea. We'll do book. There's all kinds of them. So let's go through here and just add a few. These are going to give us like some differentiated values on these formulas. And they're very random. I don't know if these fit the actual categories, but they're going to basically give us some differentiation so we can do what Laura asked, where we're counting only the ones that meet a certain criteria. Clicking on through. This is definitely the kind of content you come to a stream for, watching somebody click the same button like 800 times. But also anybody who's ever worked with Excel. Sometimes you got to do this. Sometimes the old drag method just doesn't really fit your needs. Okay, cool. So what if we only wanted to count the book notes in here, right? If we only wanted to count book notes in each of these tags, let's go ahead and create a new formula. We'll call that book note. Book notes. And let's give it a book icon. And just as a starting point, we could probably copy this. And no, actually, I don't think I want to do a starting point because I think we're going to have to get a little bit more fancy than this. Okay, so if we want to know which ones have the book tag, there's a function for that called filter. So if we do that notes reference like that before, we can pass it into filter. And then if we look at filter, let me see if I can find it here. It says returns the values in the list for which the condition is true. So the condition is whatever we write. And the most important thing here is to know what this current keyword means. So current means that it's the current item in the list that filter is working on. So filter is going to go through and check every single item on the list, and it's going to check if that item is greater than 1 in this case. I think I actually have a graphic I can show you on Whimsical. So let me pull that up real quick. Let me see. I'm going to switch over to my face real quick just so I can log in. Maybe you can read my password and my eye reflections. That's not even the right Google account. But yeah, I want to do this because I literally made like a whole graphic showing how filter and map work. So let me just see if I can find it really quickly. Cool, I can switch back. By the way, Whimsical is an amazing, amazing tool. It's just such a good tool. Presentations, I might have put it in here. Listen mapping, yes, indeed. Okay, Okay. And I think I literally made this like an actual presentation. Yep. Okay. So I actually made a presentation. I forgot about this. Yep. Sweet. Okay. So here we have an input list. And here we're using a function called map. Filter would work in a very similar way. We're going to take a list of Pokemon, and then we're going to pass it through a function called map. And map is going to do something to every single element in the list. So we're calling our function that we're putting in map evolve. And so you can see it takes Charmander in, evolves it to Charmeleon. And then it goes on down the line to Squirtle. And then it evolves that into Wartortle. And then it goes on down the line to Bulbasaur. And it evolves that into Ivysaur. So that creates a new list returned out of map using the input list and doing something to every element. That's what map does. So filter does something a little bit different. Instead of modifying every single element in the list based on a function we write, it is returning only the elements of the list that meet criteria that we set in the function. So again, current just refers to the current item in the list that is being operated on. In this case right here, the current item would be Squirtle. In this case, the current item would be Charmander. It just keeps changing as the function goes on down the line. So if we do filter, and then our criteria is current dot, we can do dot to actually access the properties of the pages that we're referencing. Dot select equals book. Now we're only getting the ones where that is actual book. Check that out. So here we have 1, 1, 1, 1. We have 2 down here. So now that we are returning a new list that just are the ones that meet this criteria, then we can do our length. Just like that. So we get 1. So I'm gonna do this even fancier. I'm gonna create a variable for this. So let's do let. Let's create a variable called count in here. Oops, I will cut that. I will cut you. Count. And that's going to be our count right there. And then what we can do is our handy dandy conditional. This time I'll just write it as an if statement. So if count equals 1, then we're going to do count plus note. Otherwise, count plus notes. Cool. So 1 note, 1 note, 1 note, 1 note, 3 notes. That's how you do it. And then, of course, if we wanted to grab our styling, we could add that in there to make that nice and pretty and aesthetic. Boom. Okay, so that is going to be the end of our note count lesson. We have 2 more. I'm gonna look at questions really quickly here and see what we have here. Marissa has a whole bunch for me. So let's see here. Why do you, actually, that was on the one. Thomas is it possible to insert selection links? We already did that one. Is the style thing new? Chris asks. I thought formula could be styled. Yep, it is brand new. So Formulas 2.0 is a brand new formula language that came out about a month ago, I think, maybe a little bit more than a month at this point. So this stream is kind of teaching Formulas 2.0 in addition to formulas in general. And then we also have that Notion Formulas 2.0 masterclass. If you want to check that out, that will go through a more advanced build than what we're going through here and also teach you a lot of the new stuff. And of course, as a reminder for anybody who's new, we have our Notion Formula reference guide. If you go to Learn Notion at thomasjfrank.com, Notion Formulas, everything is there. All of the new functions that are in Notion Formulas 2.0, we have an article for each and every one. And it's just a great reference for when you're building your Notion formulas. Okay, breaking into some questions right now. Okay, so Tim Kroll said, how can I get the second line that shows the formulas result on my screen? I think we already did that one. I'm trying to see if there are new questions I haven't covered yet. Does Notion have a rand function that could have done the tag selection quicker? I actually don't think Notion has rand yet. We can check for that, but I don't think it does. We asked for a random function. I think this definitely got brought up in discussion, but yeah, there's nothing random yet. So that would be pretty cool. There's nothing random yet though. Okay. Ali asks, does the filter function work with all types of properties, including relations, rollups, and formulas too? It works with relations, maybe rollups. It works on lists of pages, I think. Well, actually, let's look. Before I say silly, it works on lists. So whatever is returning a list, it'll work on that. Again, we could do a list of pirates. Get ourselves Luffy, Nami, and the gang. Chopper, Brook. Not going to do them all, but I think I could. We can call filter on that. And then we could do where current dot length, and it would be string, again, because we're not operating on the list here. Current is operating on the element that we're working on at the moment. So current dot length is greater than 5. Now we just get chopper and brook. So anything that returns as a list, you can use for filter. Okay. John says, I'm a software developer and I'm wondering that now that you have learned how to code, which things would you do with formulas and which things would you rather do with the API? I think the short answer to that question is whatever is going to get me the result I want faster. Formulas and what I would do with code are very different things. So, if I'm like making an automation that processes recurring tasks, I still need the API for that. If I am doing something like this right here, I would do a formula for that. So one thing I'll note about APIs is like, you're now working with external systems. You're now working with multiple systems. That adds a lot of complexity and that adds fragility, right? So like one thing we learned painfully over years with our recurring task setup is the Notion API. It's not always working. It's usually up, but it's not always working. So there's some fragility there. So whatever I could use a formula to get the result I want, I will. Okay, so Dimitri says, what is the name of the program that shows keystrokes on the keyboard? I am using a program called Cursor Pro, and then there's also Keystroke Pro. I think I can Google those for you. Cursor Pro. These are sweet apps. I really like these. They are the reason that I actually use macOS for my streams. On Windows, there is Karnak the Magnificent, Carnac for that, for keystrokes. And then for mouse highlighting, I think there's a program just literally called Mouse Highlight. Nice thing is on Windows, those are free. Whereas on Mac, you got to pay for everything because people who buy Macs are willing to pay for things. Cool. Okay. So Amy says, on your older videos, do you have links to features that you wanted to see? I'm thinking the columns in toggles. On my older videos, I don't know if our older videos are fully updated with links and everything. That is like some sad tech debt that we deal with. It's just like a lot of our videos kind of go out of date and we don't always have time. Even with 11 people, we don't always have time to go back and update old videos. So in many cases, we make new videos, and when we do, we link to the new videos. Chris says, could you call the now date and turn it into a number for random? You could. But then, so like what we've talked about in the ambassador Slack with this is you might want a stable random. So like it's random once and then it sticks. And then you might want a random that's changing all the time. So you could do it. I've tried it before, but it's not really random. Like it's not lava lamp random. It's still just like date-based random. So you could basically take like, you're taking sequential data, right? You're taking essentially a Unix timestamp, which is just going up sequentially over time. And then you try to perform a bunch of mathematical operations on it. You could get really fancy and you could do modulus operations to make it hard to reverse, but it's still sequential data. And depending on when something is generated, like it's got that sequential seed. So like lava lamp random would be so much better. Okay. Let's see here. Can we use the relation property in the if function? Yes, you can. Absolutely. You just call the relation. And then Chris says, what if I wanted to count of status rather than notes? Can you get a count of the new status you made versus just the 3 main categories? I don't think so. I think you could get a count, like say we had, we're actually going to get into our next project that's going to sort of deal with this, but say you had, a bunch of different tags, or a bunch of different tasks, and like all of them had different statuses. You could pull them all in and you could get the statuses that are existing, but there's no way currently to see all of the different status categories that you have or status options. Again, that would be an example of like meta information that we'd love for formulas to be able to access. So again, a good thing to ask Notion for. I don't know if we've asked Notion for that exact thing, but we've definitely asked for like the meta information, like page counts, things like that. Okay, so we're gonna create another one called Project Progress here, and I am sharing my screen. Wanted to check that out. Take a drink right here. I'm at 1:40. So the next thing we want to do is create a project progress formula. And it's basically just going to show us our progress through a project based on the tasks in that project and how many of them are done. If we want to go over to our reference guide, I think we can actually see it in action. There it is. Garage cleanout 47% complete. UB 2.0 launch 56% complete. Hike prep 53. So that's what we're going to build here. And in our project progress document here, as a reminder, this is available in the description as a template. I think Marissa also has a link to it as well, but it's in the description of this video. We're going to create that. And so basically we have a task database here where we have a bunch of tasks, they have statuses, and then they are related to a project. I think if we also open it up or open up the projects, we can see those tasks inside. Yes, we can. Check them all out. Nice and organized. So we want to create a little progress formula bar. And I think I already created it. So I'm just going to create it one more time. Actually, let's go ahead and delete it. So I'm not cheating. And we're creating it from scratch. So we're going to create ourselves another formula. We're going to call it project progress, or maybe just progress. I'm going to give it a rocket ship because I like rocket ships. And let's again think through the pseudocode of what we need to do. So we've already worked with filter, right? And we know what filter does. It goes through a list of items and it outputs only the items that fit the criteria. So if we're trying to get a percent here, what we would want to do is for the numerator, we want to get a list, an account of all of the projects or the tasks within a project that have the done status. And then we want to divide that by the list of all the tasks in that project, right? So again, it's just our typical division to create a percentage. And the only really hard thing we have to do here is actually get into our relation and get the number of done projects, or tasks. So to do that, we are gonna go ahead and do tasks.filter. We'll grab that current keyword to represent the current item that we are evaluating. And because the current keyword currently relates to, or currently represents a page, which is its own data type inside of Notion formulas, we can actually use dot and get into the properties of that page. Look at all these properties. I have got so many properties. How do I juggle all these properties? I'm just going to leave them all on the ground except for status. The status is the one we want. And now we want to do status equals done. So we're going to return only the tasks where status equals done. And then if we do dot length on that, again, we're returning a new list. So if we pass that into length, we're going to get the number of done tasks. So 8, 9, 10. And now if we divide that, so let's go ahead and wrap that in parentheses just to make it a little more clear what we're doing. And I'm going to even make it more clear by entering down. I'm going to tab these in. And I'm going to sort of show that as one discrete unit. Now we can divide this by tasks.length in general. So again, the denominator does not need to be filtered because we just need the list, or the length, or the number of tasks for the entire project. So here we have 0.47, blah, 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 blah. Now that we are outputting a number value, once again, we can go into our property settings and we can set that to a bar, and we can set our number format to a percent. We are also going to want to do some rounding. So let's go ahead and do that really quickly. And then we're going to add one additional little trick here to make this empty if there are no tasks in a project. So let's add a new project here. Let's call this one Ninja Training. Something we all want to do. And it looks like actually by default, it just is empty. So we don't even need it. Cool. Okay, so we want to round this. How can we round it? Well, we've already gone through rounding. And we have this here. So let's go ahead and wrap this whole bad boy in parentheses. So we get like one group that represents this entire operation. We can then pass that into round as we did before. And then if we wanted it to be 2 decimals, let's go ahead and times the entire thing by 100 in here, and then divide by 100 outside. 53%, 47%, 53, and 0. Now, because we're using round, it's always going to be outputting a number, and maybe we don't want 0% because this is actually ambiguous information here, right? Ninja Training has no tasks inside it whatsoever, but with 0%, we might be tricked into thinking there are a lot of tasks in here and we just haven't done any of them. So a little trick we can do is, again, we can use our conditionals and we can say if tasks is empty, like that, ternary syntax one more time. I'm going to do just a blank string. Otherwise, we'll do everything we just did. and that makes that empty. So now we know at a glance, this is a project that just doesn't have any tasks yet versus a project that has a bunch of tasks, but we haven't done any of them. So that is our penultimate, second to last formula project we're going to do in this stream. We have one more. I'm going to kick into questions. The last one is going to be the hardest, but also I think maybe the coolest. So we're going to do that, but I'm going to check out a few questions really quickly. Mauricio, and again, hopefully I get the name pronounced correctly. Hey, Frank, is it possible to count a word inside the name string? Are you asking if it's possible to get the word count inside the name string? Because if so, then yes, it is actually possible to get that. In fact, let's build that as a fun bonus formula challenge. I think that'd be a fun one. So let's make a new page. We're going to call this word count. I think I've actually done this before on Twitter. I think I was like challenging the Coda guy to figure out how he could do it as well. So let's just call this word count database. And let's get the lyrics to the Pokemon theme song. You know, like you do, like you do. Let's get all these. Let's make a lot of words in our name property to do this correctly. Let's do text formatting stripper. Just want to get rid of everything in this text. Strip it all. That's better. All right, let's put this in here. So we have a lot of words in the name property. How are we going to get the word count in here? First, we're going to delete tags. I don't want that. And we are going to create a formula property. And I'll get to other questions after we finish this. So we're going to do word count. Word count. We could just call it word. And I actually have to think through how to do this because I didn't prep this lesson. So a lot of things you have to often do when you are when you're teaching is prep ahead of time or just sort of think through it in terms of programming. So how can we get a count of the words? Well, I do know that there is a function called split, and split returns the list of values created by splitting a text by a separator. And it looks like you can pass in as your first argument your text, and then your second argument is going to be your separator. So if we're trying to get a word count here, I think our separator is going to be the space character, right? And we might actually end up a little bit messed up here because this also has new line characters in it. So I think what I want to do first and foremost is replace all the new line characters with space characters. So to do that, I'm going to replace all. This is a more advanced function that you can actually do stuff with like regular expressions. We're not going to get too much into it, but I do want to replace all of the new line characters in this with space characters. So let's get name, past, replace all, and then we're going to do, I think it's /n, \n. We'll do space. So there we go. That actually gets us the Pokemon song lyrics without the new line characters, which means the space is going to be our separator. So then we could pass this into split, and our separator will be space. And then we can do length. 316 words. That's how you do word count in a Notion formula. I'll bring that back up just so you can kind of see it. 316. So again, we are replacing all the new line characters with spaces. That way our separator is always a space character. Then we are splitting based on the space character as our separator. And then we are taking the resulting list of values and passing that into length. We could do other fancy things. We could do filter where current dot length is less than 2. That will get us only the I's and the A's. You can do all kinds of fun stuff there. Okay, some other questions. Are there any limits on formula operations? There are limits. We have documentation on that in our formula reference guide, so check that out. There's like a chaining limit that is particularly important to know about. Let's see here. Illuminati. Can you create a dashboard-like view of how many tasks completed, like show a percent or goal chart next to your table? I think you can do something like that. That's a bit of a lengthier build, so we won't do it here, but I do think it's possible. And then Ally says, do filter functions have to always be followed by current, or can I filter dot property directly? It always has to be using current, because again, current is representing, it's a keyword that represents the current item in the list. So if you don't use it, then there's no way for the filter function to know which item you're using. So yes, you always have to use current. And then Amy's saying, I'm getting this error, cannot call filter with target of type text. Yes. So if you're calling filter on a string value, it's not going to work. It has to be a list. So let me show you again. Did we do it in percent? Yes, we did. You might have called filter directly on a string like Brooke, but you can see here, I'm using brackets, closing or opening bracket, closing bracket to create an actual list that is a type of data in Notion formulas. And you can see it's here, it's outputting with commas between each list item. That is what I'm calling filter on. And so that's why that works. Okay. Illuminati, do you have to worry about double spaces? I don't think so. If you do, then you'll know, but that I don't think you have to. John says, is there a way to make variables in Notion formulas? It would be really nice if you make it look like more like a script. Yes, you can. We've covered that in this stream already. I'll go back to a previous example and show you. And then I think we're actually going to use it in the next example. So you'll get to see it in the next example. And then Michael says, is there a way to do a lookup? There kind of is. I literally did VLOOKUP in Notion. We have an actual example of that you can check out. It's a little jank. It's also a bit beyond this stream's scope because you have to use what I call an aggregator property. Basically, you have to relate every property in your database to one page. And then that's what you can kind of get into with like map or filter. And you can essentially do a lookup with some complex formula stuff. It's like formula jujitsu, not formula kindergarten karate, which is what we're doing here. So if you go into our Notion formula guide, I think if you find an article that actually has an example database, we're still working on the new ones. Let's see here. I think Min should have one. Yeah, let me see if I can go there and get to my formula database. Yeah. Formula examples. Yep. So you can just click on any example database from our formula guide. You'll find our Notion formula examples database. And then I think if you go to examples, yep, here it is, VLOOKUP in Notion. So you literally can do it. It's just kind of a pain. Anyway, are there other questions before we go to the next one? Any reason to method chain 2 filters in a row? Yeah, maybe. So, you might be filtering here where the current length is greater than 5. And then, again, that's just returning a list. So if you wanted to do something else with that new list, you could, and that could involve a new filter call. So we could do .filter on that. And that could be current. Let's see, if we just do current, should just output anything. Let's see, current dot, is there car? I thought there was like a character at function. Let's see, I mean, we could do current dot length again, just as an example. Is greater than 6, is there any? Oh, I did typo again, transposition error. Yep, only chopper. So again, this just returns a list. So you could pass it into a new filter if you wanted to. And I think I actually have done it with 2 calls on map before. Can't remember why, but I have. Okay, we are going to go on to our final planned example at the very least, and it's going to be audio file duration. So here, if Notion decides to load for me, you can see we have a list of recordings and we have their duration in seconds. And what we're going to create is an actual duration property here that outputs the hour, minute, and second count. So there's 2 benefits here. Number one, this is a lot more understandable to people who understand hours and minutes and seconds. And then the other one is we're going to actually be able to sort. I mean, we could sort by seconds if we wanted to, but this formatting will allow us to sort by duration properly. One person's asking, is there anywhere in a 2-way calendar integration? Not quite yet, hopefully in the future, but nothing concrete yet. So we're going to go ahead and build this. This is going to be the most advanced one in the class here. And I've actually written out kind of like pseudocode, kind of going through it. The reason it's advanced is because we are going to be doing some modular math. It's not actually like programmatically advanced. It's just like in terms of the concept that we're going to be using, modularity. A lot of people probably don't remember that from school. So we're going to get into it. And if you follow along with me, you're going to understand it. So we're going to create one more formula property. We're going to call that one duration. Let's go ahead and give it a clock or a stopwatch or something like that. Wait, no, we said we were being whimsical, so we're actually going to give it something different. We're going to give it a cat duration. Okay, so let's go ahead and start building this out here. Again, we want an hour count, we want a minute count, and we want a second count. And we're going to be using variables here. So I think somebody asked about variables. I think John did. You're going to get to see exactly how we use them here. And we're going to use a new function here that we haven't used yet. We've used let earlier. This time we're going to use lets. So let's is just like let, except for we'll actually let you build multiple variables. So you can see here, let's, the argument list is variable, value, variable2, value2, ... expression. So what that means is in pairs, you can name a variable, give it a value, and you can do that as many times as you want. And then the last one is going to be your expression, which is going to be what returns out of let. And yes, cats per cheeseburger. We Americans will literally do anything not to use the metric system. I measure my house in cubits. So, take that for what you will. Okay, so in lets, again, the first argument is going to be the name of our first variable. We're going to call that hour. And then we have to now figure out, how do we get the number of hours out of a number of seconds? Well, if we think about it, there are 60 seconds in a minute, and there are 60 minutes in an hour, so there are 3,600 seconds in an hour. So we can use the modulus operator, which gives us what's called a remainder, and there's differences between modulus and remainders that you can read about in my article. I went crazy on it, but we're not going to talk about it here. We can use the modulus operator here. So we will take our seconds property, and then we can do modulus, which is the percent sign as an operator, and we'll do 3,600. So, and then if I just return this, just return hour like that, we are going to get 2734, 1202, but here we get 3,600, and here we get 60. So what's happening? Basically, if I give it, let's give it a really long one. Let's make a super long lecture, Super Mario lecture. Super Mario Lecture Bros. That's the new game from Nintendo. You get to learn about programming and formulas with Mario. And let's give that a duration of 7,586 seconds. So now we see 386 left over. What's going on there? Think of it like a clock. If I have a number of hours, like 27 hours, and I were to count up those hours on the outside of a clock, I'd go around once, and that would be 12, boom. And then I'd go around twice, and that'd be 12, boom. How many are left over? After I wrap around the clock as many times as I can, how many are left over? 3, right? So I have 24 or 27 hours, then 12 are ticking off, then 12 are ticking off again. I have 3 left over. That's how modular arithmetic works. You're wrapping a tape around a clock, and then you're wrapping it around as many times as you can all the way. And if there's a little bit left over that can't go all the way again, that is your remainder. So that is how we can get the number of hours from a number of seconds. Now this is still giving us a second count. So what we actually want to do is really quickly look at my reference guide, because I'm forgetting exactly how to do it. Oopsie. We're taking the floor. Oh, we're not using modular yet. We're using that for minutes. Oops. So I will do minutes first. Yep. Okay. So back to audio file duration. Back to this. Let's actually call this minutes. And we have to take what's called a floor value. So floor, again, I'll show you in a second on our round thing here. Expression expect. Oh, that's why. Yep. Minutes. 45. Okay. So floor is another one of those basically rounding functions. If we go here to floor, let me see if I have my rounding functions. Yes, I do. So floor tilts towards negative infinity. So basically, if you have 0.5, it would get you to 0. If you had negative 0.5, it'd go down to negative 1. So any decimal that you have, it's basically going to take the integer that is closer to negative infinity from that decimal. Ceiling is the opposite. It tilts towards positive infinity. Trunk tilts towards 0. And then round tilts towards the nearest integer with a slight positive, I guess, downward slope here to show that if you have 0.5 directly in the middle, it's going to go to the bigger one. So going back here, I realize I lost my train of thought a little bit because hours is different, but minutes should be that. Or basically, and I'm just going to actually go ahead and open up a new tab real quick, just so we can show our reference here. 4 minutes, we are taking that second value, going into 3,600. That's going to give us the remaining seconds, and then we divide that by 60 to get minutes. And I was incorrect with hours. We are not using modular. We're just going to use division. Maybe somebody caught that in the chat. I'm not sure. But for hours, let's just go ahead and replace this with hours. So we're doing it correctly. Hours is just going to be the floor value of seconds divided by 3,600. So now we can actually see this one is over an hour. This one is over 2 hours. So we're getting our hour counts just like that. So here's where let's becomes really useful. We've defined one variable, named it hours. Now we can do that again, and we can do it for minutes. So minutes is where I should have been using my modular arithmetic. So with minutes, we want to do our seconds property, which is just, again, a number of seconds. Then we will take that, the remainder after 3,600, and divide that by 60. And that should get us a number of minutes. And then finally, seconds, if we take a look at our reference here, is going to be probably the most confusing of the two because we have literally two modular arithmetics. So basically, we're trying to get the remainder after we get hours out of the way, and then we're trying to get the remainder after we get seconds or minutes out of the way. Sorry. So to explain that a bit more slowly, we'll take seconds, which is not letting me do it for some reason. It's annoying. Did I encounter a bug? Let me rename this to second really quick. Oh, no, I just forgot the comma. Forgot a comma live on stream. That's embarrassing. Okay, now I can add this. I can name the seconds. There we go. Okay, so we'll take our seconds relation or our property here. And then we can do modulo 3,600. So again, we're wrapping around a giant clock that represents how many seconds are in an hour, 3,600. Wrap it around. Anything left over is going to be a remainder. So say we had 3,700 seconds. We wrap the tape around the clock that is 3,600 seconds in circumference. We are left with 100 seconds. Well, 100 seconds is still, there's a minute in that, right? So we want to take that remainder of 100 and we want to put that into modulo 60. So again, now I have a minute shaped clock where we have 60 units, the circumference of 60. And so if you have 100 seconds, we're wrapping the tape around, getting 1 minute off there, and then we have 40 seconds left over. So that is what is working there. We do not need to take the floor value here for the second count because we don't have fractional seconds that we're dealing with. So we can just leave it like that. So now what we can do is in our final argument, we can start to build the expression. And to keep it simple, I'm just going to combine them all together. So let's just do hours plus minutes. And I think that's actually numbers. So let's see, I'm going to do hours.format plus minutes.format plus seconds.format. And we could even add dashes in there or maybe even colons just to sort of show. Oops. I don't know what it's doing. Minutes.format plus colon seconds.format. So there we almost have it. We almost have it, but there's one problem. We need to have a 0 before this 2. We need to have a 0 before this 0. There always needs to be two digits per group here. 2 hour, 2 minute, 2 second. So to do that, we need to break into conditionals. So I'm going to get rid of all of this. And I'm actually going to build a list. So once again, we're going to get our brackets opening and closing. I'm going to shift enter down, go back up, shift enter and tab, and I'm going to create a nice little list here. And in here, we can actually do some conditionals, and we're going to use the ternary syntax one more time. So first and foremost, I'm going to get hours. And if hours is less than 10, which would be a 1-digit number, so 0 through 9, then we want to do string value of 0 plus hours. If not, we'll just do hours. And we'll do the exact same thing for all the other ones. So minutes less than 10. If so, add that 0 as a string value to minutes. Otherwise, do minutes. And then we'll do seconds. Is that less than 10? If so, One more time, 0 plus seconds. Otherwise, seconds. So now we have 0, 0, 45, 34, and that doesn't look quite right, does it? We don't have the colons. Well, that is where our final function is going to come in. That is the join function. And if we look at what join can do, it is the opposite of split. It returns the values of the list with the joiner placed between each of the values in that list. So if we give it a joiner of colon, check that out. Now we have our durations as they should be, and we can even sort by our duration in ascending or descending. Set that to descending maybe. And now we have our longest Super Mario Lecture Bros at the top. And yeah, it's all good. It's all great. We can't add it because this isn't a number. This is all a string, but we could add the seconds together if we really wanted to. 19,862 seconds. This is useful because if you've been following the TF Explains channel recently, we have this brand new video, well, brand new as of a month ago, on an AI workflow that will allow you to actually take notes with your voice using a voice recorder app on your phone. Anyone really works. And then you can share those to Dropbox or Google Drive or OneDrive. And then we're going to use Whisper from OpenAI to transcribe what you said and then get a summary of it and send that to Notion. And the script actually has the ability to put the number of seconds, the duration of your audio file, into a Notion property. And so you can use a formula just like this to get the actual duration in hours, minutes, and seconds from that formula or from that workflow. So check that out if you are interested in being able to take notes with your voice. And we will eventually have that as a feature in Flylighter. We're working on a full iOS app. So it's going to be even easier to set up in the near future. But for now, it works totally well as something inside of Pipedream and Notion. Okay, so that was all of our planned lessons. Yeah, so I'm going to go through questions now. And if there are any other useful questions, we might be able to build some other formulas. But I'm going to check out the questions we have here in my back channel. Let's see here. Ian Gilbert says, is there a way to automatically add code to a formula? I'm tracking my fantasy football league scores and want to avoid adding code every time a new week of data is added. I think you can change a formula via an API, but that gets into some really advanced territory. So I will say within the Notion product, you can't automatically change a formula's code. There might be a way that you could work around that though, if you think through the problem. Amy says, why did you type hours twice when you were checking the formula? Let's hours. Okay. So yeah, I actually do want to explain that. So Amy is asking why I initially did hours, then did this, then did hours. So let me create another formula property to show you why. Let's call it let's. So again, when we use that let's function, it has essentially 3 arguments, but it can actually be kind of infinite arguments. So what it has is a variable, a value, and an expression. And then we can define additional variable value pairs. So what I was doing here is I was creating my variable name, hours. I was getting the value, which is floor seconds divided by 3,600. And then the last argument here is the expression. So I just wanted to show you what actually happens when we bind this value to this variable name. So I just returned that variable name. So here you can see I'm just returning 2 hours or 2. I could do plus hours, and now I have 2 hours. I could do 2 pirates, and now I have 2 pirates, because hours is simply holding this value. So again, we are creating a name here, putting a value inside it. The name is a container for the value. It references that value. And then we can reference that name instead of having to do something like this and repeat a code a whole bunch of times. But you can see it's the same exact thing. 2 pirates, 2 pirates. The result doesn't change, even though the code is changing. So hopefully that makes sense. Ali says, what's the difference between the concat and join functions? Let's find out. Concat returns the concatenation of multiple lists, whereas join, I believe, turns a list into a string with a separator between. So I'll actually show you what happens here. Let's create our pirate list one more time. I wish I would have put that on my clipboard, but what are you gonna do? We'll get Luffy, we'll get Nami, we'll get Zoro. And if I do .join with, I don't know, an emoji. Now you can see we're returning a string where each item in the list is joined by the join character we gave. Concat is a bit different. So concat, let me just copy that to my clipboard real quick. Concat concatenates multiple lists together. So if I did concat, one of my arguments could be the list of pirates like that. And then the next argument could be another list. So let's get a list of some other pirates. This one will be Blackbeard. This one will be Ace. This one will be, oh, what are some other pirates? There's other pirates. Doflamingo. And now you can see I have two separate lists. List 2, list 1. Concat it's basically flat if you're familiar with programming. It's flattening an array. I guess it's not really flattening. It's not flattening because flattening would be multidimensional. It's actually taking two arrays and it's basically concatenating them into one. So I had two different lists and now I have one. That might be more useful if you had like two different relation properties in a database. So maybe you have like a projects database and you have like a notes relation and a tasks relation, and you wanted to get all of those notes and tasks in one formula property, you could use concat for that reason. Okay, let's see here. How do you get around the dates between formula because it takes into consideration the time? What if I want to just show the number of days? So Sahil, if you wanted to do that, you would just get rid of the time on something. Let's do that actually. Let's go ahead and do that as an example because we're hanging out. We're building cool stuff here. Let's delete our formulas and let's delete this number and let's create a date. So this date is going to have a time. We'll give it a date of today and we'll give it a time. And because I'm so zoomed in, I literally can't see the time. So I have to zoom out really quick. I still can't see the time. Come on. There we go. Okay, let's set this at 4:19 wink p.m. And let's just set that as actually yesterday. So here's what's going to happen. If I have a formula and I want to get the number of days between this day and today. So let's just say days. You're right. I could do date between and I could do now and I could do date and I could do days and let's see what happens. It gives us 0. But we might want it to be 1 because this was actually yesterday, right? But it's not giving us 1, even though today isn't yesterday. So what's the issue there? Well, if I had 4:19 p.m. on here, it's currently 1:13 p.m. Mountain Time. So it has not yet been 24 hours. So what we have to do is kind of chop the time off of here. And that's what we can do with format date and parse date. So let's see, there might be a couple of different ways to do this. I'm trying to think of the best way to do it. I think format date and parse date might be the best way to do it. So first, let's create a variable. I'm going to do let's again, just as more practice for it. I'm going to call it yesterday. All right, let's just call it date, actually. Yeah, let's call it date. And we're going to do, I think it's going to be format date. And we're going to take our date property. And then we want to output it as year. So this is, again, our rad date, ISO 8601, MMDD, just like that. And then we can do parse date on it. And that is going to strip the time off of it. So again, if I just return that date, now you can see November 2, 2023. Look at that. So now what we can do is maybe also do the same thing for now. So let's just do now date. Format date, now, same thing, ISO 8601 format, dot parse date. Now we've stripped the time off of now. And now we can do the same thing that we were doing earlier. We do date between, now date, and date in days. So now we get 1 as we should have gotten because we're just trying to count, was it yesterday? So hopefully that is useful for you. Let's see here. Some other questions. For let's, why is it not hours? Yep. So Amy, you're asking why is it not hours equals. seconds divided by 3,600. It should have been. I just messed up there. Chris says, how in God's name did you ever write the next do function in your ultimate brain template? The short answer is I only wrote part of it. So back in 2020, I think, or 2021, I wrote a much simpler version of next do. And then from there, Martin took over all of it. So Martin's one of the developers on my team. And yeah, next do is bonkers. Do I even have a copy of Ultimate Brain in here? I think I do. Yeah, I'll show you really quickly just how crazy dates in Notion can get. I think this might be an older copy of Ultimate Brain, but we should still be able to see what that formula looks like. Oh boy. So yeah, this is what Martin had to write for next do. I think there's a newer version he's written that looks way better. This is a Notion Formula 1.0 version of it. But yeah, he went crazy. Like this took months to perfect. So it was really like a programming project just using Notion formulas. John says, going back to my actual project real quick here, formulas for beginners. John says, this is a very niche question, but is there any way to share a filtered view with somebody without giving them access to the entire database using formulas? So how? Nope, there's not. This is actually not a niche question. The question John is asking is one of the most common questions we get about Notion. What he's asking is, hey, say I've got a tasks database and it's related to a client's database and I've got tasks for each client. Can I share only the tasks related to that client with that client without giving them permission to see the entire task database? And the answer is no. There currently is no good way to do this in Notion. It is, in my opinion, Notion's Achilles heel. It's the one thing they need to fix. They are working on it. I recently saw, I think Ivan, the CEO and the founder of Notion, replied to Ben Borowski from Notion Mastery about this on Twitter, and they said they're working on it. Apparently it's a hard problem to solve, but they are working on it. So yeah, hopefully, I mean, it is literally the number one thing I want to see in Notion. And it's the biggest thing. It's the biggest blocker for business owners getting their teams, especially if they're like agencies, if they have outside clients, things like that. Like it is, in my opinion, a very necessary feature. So hopefully it's coming soon. Amy says, in the errors that come up, what do the numbers in the brackets mean? 14, 47. That is a good question. That might mean line and then character index, but I'm not entirely sure. So I think that's what it means though. Okay, so let's see if there's any other questions in here. Can you reference a previously declared variable in a new variable declaration? Yes, you can. You actually can. I'm trying to scroll up really quick here, seeing if there's anything else in here. I think Marissa's been doing a really, really good job grabbing all the questions. So let's hear it. Similar to embedding a video, could you make a dashboard, so to speak, that only shows you the filtered data you want in some way? I mean, you could definitely make a dashboard that filters database views. In fact, that was the entire project we did last Friday. If you go to the live tab on Thomas Friedman Explains, the notes dashboard from scratch shows you how to do that basically. So check that out if you want to. We'll have a shorter version. I literally turned this stream and made it into a video that should hopefully be under an hour. That'll be coming out next week. So check that out. And let's see here. Digital James asks, do you have a solves database for complex formulas you've made? We do. I wouldn't say for every formula I've ever made, but again, if you are on my formula reference guide here and you find a page that has an example database, you can click into that example database. And then if you follow the breadcrumbs, follow the yellow brick breadcrumb road, we have this whole database of formulas. So all of these, like the built-ins and functions, these are specific articles for specific functions, but then the rest of them, like reference and especially examples, these are basically solves that I've done. So yeah, a lot of, like, I think literally somebody asked me on Twitter, can we do VLOOKUP in Notion? And I spent like 3 hours trying to figure it out, and here it is. So definitely check that out. I will even link that in the chat real quick, so you have it. It's public. Cool. Let's see here. Are there any other questions that I need to check out here? Is this planned to be a weekly stream? Maybe. What I'm going to say is I want to do them often. What I don't want to say is every single Friday, because I often travel for business. I've got CEO stuff going on, product development. So I'm going to do it as often as I can, especially when there's demand for topics, because it is fun. I find it actually a lot easier to talk to a live camera than I do to a camera that's filming me for a video that will come out later. So weirdly enough, it's like the energy you get from public speaking, even though I'm still talking to a camera. Okay, so let's see here. Hi, Thomas. I've just started using Notion. I'm worried that if the app goes out of business, what would happen to all my stuff within the second brain? Would it all be lost? So Notion has export tools. There's export tools per page. There's a workspace export function. And if Notion were to ever actually go out of business, you can bet they would be actually, creating even more robust export tools. I don't think that is ever going to happen. Getting like meta with the strategy here. If anything were to happen to Notion, it would be an acquisition by a bigger company rather than a full out of business kind of thing. That's just like, there's just too much value locked up in the app. So yeah, but there are those export tools. You can check those out. And there's like Notion documentation all about how to use them. Let's see here. Are rollups faster than formulas, or are there formulas that are known to be slow? I don't know if rollups are by definition faster than formulas. I will say that if you are building a formula that basically replicates a rollup, it is simple enough that the difference is not going to be noticeable. That being said, I have actually written formulas before Formulas 2.0, haven't tried it since. But before Formulas 2.0, I've written formulas that actually did slow my Notion workspace down. In fact, that gigantic next do formula that I showed you, that has a bunch of helper properties because we originally wrote it as one formula and it was so big that it slowed our Notion workspace to a crawl. And what we found out is actually if you create these helper properties that essentially do variables for you, they can make the computational load a lot lower for some reason that I don't quite understand. Okay, let's see here. Not a formula question, but when is Notion going to let their AI dig into your whole workspace as a knowledge base? I can neither confirm nor deny nor give a specific date as to when that may or may not happen. But it's a thing that could happen. So keep your eyes peeled. Let's see here. Mohammed says, the question would be, how do you work so consistently? I've been watching your videos for 5 years. You are still working in a better performance day by day. How, I think Marissa's answer, me being secretly a robot, might be a good one. The biggest thing is systems, right? So, and motivation. Actually, systems and motivation are big. The bigger thing is having something to care about. So when I care about something really deeply, I don't have to summon motivation. I just have it. Right now, I have a lot of motivation because I have things I care very deeply about. Again, I will plug it because this is my big project right now. And this is the mission I'm trying to solve in the world. Flyletter.com is our big thing. What I want to solve right now is idea capture and knowledge capture for people who are already using another tool for their second brain, be it Notion, maybe in the future, other tools as well. There needs to be better tools for capturing ideas and capturing knowledge that you come across on the web. That's what we're building, right? So I have so much conviction about solving that problem because I know firsthand when I built that voice recording workflow, I was able to go for long walks, get my daily exercise, feel a lot better because I'm out, getting actual sunlight, and literally write videos by talking to my phone. That's amazing. Something I think about all the time is like, if you can remove a little bit of friction from something, you can enable so much action. Think about like the reason people move to cities. It's because there are so many people in a smaller area. So you have so much less travel time to go meet up with people. And that's why so much stuff comes out of cities. It's a melting pot of opportunity because you've removed the friction of travel time to have meetings. So what more could we get done if we had less friction in capturing our ideas no matter where we were, if we had less friction in capturing the information we come across on the web, highlights, all kinds of stuff like that? How much more could actually get done in the world? That's what obsesses me right now. So I'm like, I want to market this app. I want to support my development team to build this app, make it as good as possible. I'm obsessed. And because I'm obsessed, I get stuff done really, really quickly. But beyond that, to go to full screen mode for a second, there's like a second layer, right? So obsession is the first layer and you're not always going to have it. You go through seasons of obsession. I went through one season of obsession with College Info Geek, a season of obsession with my YouTube channel trying to get to 1 million subscribers. And then I went through a season of lower obsession where I'd built the systems, I'd gotten to 1 million subscribers. I felt like in a holistic sense, I'd sort of solved the mission of building the best college student resource on the web. And then I was like, well, now I'm just making videos and I've got sponsor deadlines and I have a team and I have all that kind of stuff. And what you find is many times, like just the fact that you have a team relying on you, or just the fact that you have obligations on the schedule, that doesn't generate the obsession. It's duty, and duty is very powerful. I made a whole video about duty, but it isn't obsession. It's not the same kind of thing. It doesn't like create the same kind of spark in your head, not always. So that's where the second layer comes in, and that second layer is systems and accountability. And that is, I love actually using the word duty, because accountability is a bit longer and a bit more vague. Duty implies that you have a duty to somebody else, and you set that up in advance. So there could be duty to yourself, which could be like you put something on the calendar and you're basically like, my identity is of a productive person who sticks to his word. My duty is to myself, my past self, who planned this out. More powerful yet is duty to other people you care about, your team, people beneath you, like who work for you. You have maybe younger siblings, or your parents, or your family, your coworkers, all that kind of stuff. If you feel duty to those people, then you are going to work more consistently as well. So it's all that. Everything else is kind of fluff, right? Everything else is just like organizational tools that help you out and keep things less confusing. So you have a calendar, you have a task list, you have a notebook that you just write down what you need to get done in the day. Those are important. But the two main things are you obsessed with something you care about? And do you feel duty either to yourself or to other people who you do care about and who depend on you? Okay, that was like a whole Thomas Frank main channel video as a question answer there. Okay, are there any other questions that I need to cover before I end this stream? Do you have to pay for Mac Whisper and Pipe Dream for that function? I wondered if I use Mac Whisper or if Drafts or Hazel has something that you can do locally. I'm not sure. Okay, so right now, so what I've been doing is trying to ship things as quickly as possible and refine them over time. That's what all the best startups do. So with our TF Explains AI workflow here, the cost at the moment is about 40 cents per hour of uploaded audio, which is extremely cheap, but we can get it cheaper. So what we can do is run Whisper, which is the transcription model that actually takes speech and turns it into text. We can run that locally. It's an open source model, which is awesome. So when we release the Flyletter mobile app, we're going to have a workflow in there that will literally do the transcription locally on your phone. And what that will do is actually reduce 90% of the cost of the workflow. In doing the math, I figured out that 90% is the transcription and only 10%, at least using GPT 3.5 Turbo, is the summarization. Now, summarization is one thing that currently we can't really do for free. I've looked deeply into this. Right now, OpenAI is actually the cheapest way to do it. The alternative way to do it would be to literally host your own model, like an open source model. So like Facebook or Meta released the Llama 2 70 billion parameter model recently. That can do summaries a little bit better actually than GPT 3.5 Turbo. However, to run that model, you need A100 GPUs, which nobody has on a consumer basis. And A100 is way more powerful for this workflow than something like 3080 Ti or something like that. So, or 3800, whatever it is. So you need to go and actually rent GPUs and rent server space from like Replicate or Linode might do it. I'm not sure. But that actually costs more per hour to run those servers than it does to just make a request to the OpenAI API. And with summarization, like we are talking about pennies. So again, it's 40 cents per hour of uploaded audio, and 90% of that is the transcription. So we're talking about 4 cents to transcribe an hour of audio, which is just incredibly cheap. So yeah, that's the answer to that question. And yeah, if you want to get on the wait list for Flyletter, you can go to flyletter.com. We have a wait list right there. And we're still figuring out like our monetization strategy and everything like that. But we have a browser extension. I can open it up and show you. Boom, I could just click one of these to capture this to my Notion workspace. And we're going to have a mobile app as well. And the mobile app will have our voice note-taking workflow. So yeah, do we have any other questions here? Yeah, Sam is asking if we do live classes. Right now, we don't do live classes. I will caveat that by saying we do sometimes do Notion meetups. Now, boy, that was a loud motorcycle, man. You got having a lot of fun, hopefully. I don't currently put together the meetups and host them, but the Denver Notion community has actually done that. So I think a good way to get that going would be to tweet me. And I think Jackie Pierce is also here in Denver. We've all gotten together and done like Notion meetups before. So that would be the big thing to do. Okay, let's see here. I already used some workaround to get my entire Notion used as a knowledge base, but it's clunky and costs me. I use AI for a lot. let's see, I'm trying to see if there's a question here. I use it to question my Notion for everything from time blocking my day to letting my wife troubleshoot our smart house. Okay, so that's not a question. Are there any other questions before we wrap this up? We might be right around the same amount of time as the previous stream. So I guess I'm getting good at pre-planning 2.5-hour streams. Okay, let's see here. LM Studio makes it pretty easy to run models locally if you have the hardware. Yeah, so that would be the thing is like, if you're running a really, really bare bones model, I'm not sure how good the summarization is going to be, but you could actually try it out. Personally, like I have to avoid going too far down these rabbit holes. So this is a concept that I call engineer brain. The vast majority of the people in the world just want something that works. So like in the case of an AI summarization workflow, if I give them code that just queries OpenAI and it costs 4 cents per hour for summarization, they're going to be like, cool, that's good. And then there's people like me and other people who are like engineers who are like, oh, well, it's almost a fun puzzle to see if I can get it to be cheaper or if I can make it run locally. And I have the tendency to get nerd sniped where I'll just like end up spending a week of time digging into that problem. But in reality, again, 99% of people are happy with the workflow that costs 4 cents an hour. And I could instead go do the actual work I was supposed to be doing. Okay. So one person's asking, Nerdy Notion here saying, when of the advanced formula videos coming out? Well, we have that already on the channel. I think they're joking, but I will point you again to the Notion Formulas 2.0 masterclass. We have that there. And then I have a thumbnail I made a while ago that is so good. It's like formulas at 5 levels of complexity. It's so good, I have to make it. So I'm going to make a video at some point, and one of the formulas will probably have to be a real doozy. So we'll see. Cool. So let's see here. One person asked, how did I learn how to code? I'm making a whole video about that very soon. But as a sort of recap reminder, if you go over to thomasjfrank.com, learn Notion up in the top. If I show the screen one more time, learn Notion up in the top and go to Notion automation right there. We have the Notion API guide, and this actually contains a toggle called the full learning path. I think it's in the, what I need, I think it's, where is it? What if I don't know how to code? The what if I don't know how to code section has this full learning path and resource list, and that actually includes everything I used to learn how to code in JavaScript. So the JavaScript algorithms and data structures course was the main one. Fireship's weird JavaScript course was a good overview. Modern JavaScript tutorials are great for reading and understanding stuff. And then otherwise, it is a lot of ChatGPT, using it as almost like a pair programmer. One of my favorite prompts is, hey, here's some code I've written. What would a senior developer do to improve this? Please explain everything that you're adding to the code. It's huge. And then another one is, again, just get obsessed. I got obsessed with coding for a while, so I would eat dinner while watching videos on YouTube about coding. And that's how you learn super fast. Okay, let's see. What else do we got here? I've seen several videos in which the new formulas are used as rollups. Do you think it's useful to use them as that way? Yes, I think actually using formulas as rollups works really well. The one area, though, where you can't really use a formula in the same way as a rollup is where you're creating a self-referential filter. So we talked about that in the previous stream from last week on building a note-taking system. But basically, like if you have, say, a tags database and a notes database, and you want to create a template in the tags database where when you create a new page, it shows you all the notes in that tag, you'd use what's called a self-referential filter. And we're using a relation there. You can also use rollups in those, but you can't use formulas yet. I have been asking for it, but apparently it's pretty computationally intensive because formulas can put out lots of different data types, whereas rollups are a bit more limited in what they're going to be putting out based on pre-configuration. So I've been giving some suggestions to the coding team. I'm probably giving bad suggestions because I don't understand the technical problem as well as they do, but I have been giving suggestions. Stack Overflow is still around. I don't use it too much. Honestly, like ChatGPT is my debugger as well. And yeah, so I think that's it. Cool. Well, we are at 2.5 hours. The replay for this stream will be live on the live tab of my channel right there. It might take a little bit of time to process, and then we'll see if we can get some timestamps in there as well. I'm aiming for these live streams to be good evergreen resources in addition to being good live interaction opportunities for you guys. So I'll try to get some timestamps in there as well. And yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and finish up the stream. If you have one more question, pop it in there while I'm doing my outro spiel. Included in that spiel is one more call to action. If you want to get access to the best Notion web clipper you've ever seen, we're going to be launching that fairly soon. You can get over on the waitlist at flyletter.com. I'm going to be also doing like a sort of behind the scenes newsletter showing you some of the really cool features. So if you want to see those features before anybody else, get on that newsletter or that waiting list. And then if you are, into Notion, which I'm guessing you are because you're literally learning about Notion formulas, we have free Notion templates right here. Just launched a new one called Ultimate Notes, which is right there. And then we have our paid templates. If you really want to take Notion to the next level, we have Ultimate Brain like that. And then we have Creator's Companion. So if you are a content creator like I am, you'll be able to plan your streams, your videos, your blog posts, your podcasts, even social media content in a single Notion template that takes you from ideation, just getting those ideas down, validating them, seeing if they're the right idea for your audience, getting them packaged correctly, scripted, edited, and published. Works really, really well. Cool. So you all will get more guitar the next time I stream. Be sure to show up if you want more of that. And I will see you in the next stream we do. Make sure you are on the Notion Tips newsletter. In fact, I'll go back. I probably should have said that. Make sure you're on the Notion Tips newsletter. So Learn Notion up in the top newsletter right there. That is where I send at least 24 hours notice for my streams. So if I'm doing a stream on a Friday, you're going to hear about it on a Thursday via your email. And then, one person did ask to use Ultimate Notes inside of Ultimate Brain. Ultimate Notes is actually the same note-taking system that is inside of Ultimate Brain with a few of the more advanced features stripped out. So it doesn't have the recipe book, doesn't have the book notes tracker, doesn't have the daily journal. And then the real value that Ultimate Brain brings in is the deep integration between notes and tasks and projects. So for example, you can go into your project and you can see all of your notes and all of your tasks related to that project. That is, in my opinion, the best thing about Ultimate Brain. Whereas if you just want a very simple, bare bones note-taking system that doesn't have tasks and projects built into it, you can get Ultimate Notes. And of course, you can use all of our free tutorials to learn how to integrate things like Ultimate Tasks, Ultimate Notes. If you wanted to Frankenstein our free templates together into your own Ultimate Brain, you're absolutely welcome to do that. Cool. All right. I think... Oh, one person is asking, will you be updating the Ultimate Brain template? In fact, the Ultimate Brain template is already updated. I need to redesign the sales page to show the new interface, but it's already updated. If you buy now, you're going to get the newest version. It has tons of new features in it. It has a full redesign. It's a lot more minimalist and clean looking. So tons of new features are there. It takes a while to do the upgrade guides, transfer guides, brand new video documentation, and a new sales page. So that is the project we're in the middle of now, but the actual templates are launched and live, and you'll get them if you buy. Cool. So that'll be it. Thank you, as always, for hanging out. If I'm doing one next week, I'll let you know via that newsletter link and on Twitter as well. If you want to chat with me beyond this stream, Twitter @TomFrankly. And other than that, thanks for hanging out.